Good morning and welcome to the ABC's coverage of the 2022 Anzac Day March live from the Shrine of Remembrance. For the first time since 2019, we're hoping to see a return to pre-COVID numbers as restrictions have been eased to allow people from Melbourne and all around the country to honour diggers past and present. This morning started with a significant number of people arriving here, braving the cold and holding their family and loved ones close and feeling those goosebumps rise as the last post began to play for the traditional dawn service.
Down! Two!
They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
We cannot change the past. We cannot bring back those lost to the traumas of conflict. We can only support those who did return. We can only honour and remember those who did not. That's the purpose of this place of pilgrimage, this shrine of remembrance, this part of home that never forgets those who served. Its purpose is to honour and remember, and in doing so to understand the terrible cost of war. The Shrine of Remembrance is the living soul of Melbourne, and this soul will remain alive. This eternal flame will keep burning as long as we keep returning and remembering, lest we forget.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields.
Caulfield Party, 18, shut! Caulfield Party, General Salute, present.
Shrine Guard dismount. Thank you for joining us. This peaceful reflection as the day begins to dawn at the shrine. Remember those who served and those serving.
Beautiful pictures there on what is shaping up to be a magnificent day. Well, the march is about to begin, but here's Annie Kearney, who'll be out and about throughout the march to speak to diggers and dignitaries, but first with the all-important weather forecast.
Good morning, Paul. It is an absolute privilege to be here at the Shrine, not only to witness the dawn service earlier this morning, but now for the march. It was absolutely thrilling being here, seeing around 50,000 people for the dawn service, and now we're expecting around 15,000 for the march. I'll be having a chat to current and former serving members of the forces, as well as dignitaries and people who've come to pay their respects. What I'm most looking forward to today is seeing the streets lined and the forecourt filled, a very different sight to what we've had the past couple of years. So I look forward to Paul bringing you all the colour and the feeling and emotion from here at the Shrine today.
Thank you, Annie, and we look forward to crossing back to Annie throughout the morning. Well, as you can see, they're gathering there on the steps. They are lining that wonderful Anzac Avenue, and we can see the brilliant skyline there of Melbourne. It's a beautiful morning. And the march will get underway within minutes, and we'll see people arriving on this beautiful part of this wonderful city. Participants will make their way along St Kilda Road, then onto Anzac Avenue in front of the Shrine, and then through the forecourt, where people will disperse along Birdwood Avenue. To help us guide through this morning, joining me in the hosting position are our expert commentators representing Army, Brigadier Michelle Campbell. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, PK.
Navy is Dennis Gist back again. Good morning, Dennis.
Very good morning, Paul. Good to be here.
And of course, for the Air Force, Chris Hudnett. And good morning to you, Chris.
Good morning, Paul. Good to be here again.
A couple of significant anniversaries this year. One is the 60th anniversary of Australia's involvement in Vietnam, and we will see some Vietnam veterans leading the march this morning, Michelle.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, we'll get to those in a moment, but just want to mention the dawn service. 50,000 people turned up this morning. The Shrine has released those numbers, and Annie told us there was 50,000. That gets back to the same number as 2015, which was a big crowd that year. So we wondered what would happen after last year having those restrictions on dawn service, and of course the year before we were all standing in our pyjamas out the front on our footpaths in lockdown. So it's been quite different these last 2 years, but if the dawn service is anything to go by, we are going to see a terrific march here with lots of people turning up and resuming, well, close to normal. On the march on here on Anzac Day in Melbourne.
Yeah, I think last year we had a restricted march through the city, and then the year before we were all on our doorsteps lighting candles and live streaming a pre-record that the Shrine and the RSL did back in 2020. So it is good to see the support and that commemoration, that the community spirit is coming together after a couple of years of turbulence.
It's full 180-degree turnaround, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah.
And I think that the veterans and the families are so happy and overjoyed to be up at the shrine, and of course at all their RSLs around Australia.
Yeah, and Chris, very significant. I know the Vietnam War has been prominent in marches in the last few years, but leading us off today with that anniversary.
Yes, as you said, Paul, 60 years. I think 1962, the Australian Army training team started operations in Vietnam, and that went for about another 10 years. And then following that, in 1975, the Air Force assisted in the humanitarian and refugee assistance after the end of the Vietnam War. So a very significant day for Vietnam veterans today.
Yeah, it's such a proud moment too, isn't it, for the veterans from Vietnam to take that prominence. Peter Leifman, we'll see him, one of 3 people leading the march, who mentioned that it wasn't until the Welcome Home Parade back in 1987 when 22,000 Vietnam veterans marched through the streets of Sydney that he was feeling that it was ready to be, you know, tell people about his service in Vietnam. Of course, Bob Hawke, the Prime Minister's quote at that time was, "Whatever our individual views on the merits of Australian involvement, we must equally acknowledge the commitment, courage and integrity of armed forces." So much has changed since then about the attitudes towards those people who've served. And here comes the march.
And you can see there behind the police guard there on horseback, you've got the 5th, 6th Battalion Royal Victoria Regiment band. And that's Melbourne's own infantry battalion, and it is part of the 4th Brigade and the 2nd Division. You can see they're wearing a tartan there. So that the origins of that is that Gordon's tartan. And the battalion's antecedent is of the 6th Battalion, Royal Melbourne Regiment, and the 5th Battalion, the Victorian Scottish Regiment, that was formed in 1898. So the battalion maintains its Australian Scottish heritage and traditions through Bravo Company and the pipes and drums there.
That's quite a history, Michelle, isn't it? 1898 were formed up originally. Fantastic, isn't it?
Indeed, and the 5th, 6th Battalion has been quite prevalent in the community with bushfires, the COVID assist, aged care assist, and also floods and storms.
We'll see some dignitaries coming behind the band. We saw the Premier of the state there and the Governor, Linda Dessau, who was leading the dawn service this morning. She gave the address, and of course the ode was recited by Dr. Robert Webster, OAM, the state president of RSL Victoria. So those are the dignitaries that you can see there, and they're heading up towards the steps. You can see there, that's a great angle actually. It's easy to forget the march is up. And it's you know, it takes quite an effort for some of the diggers and families, but they do it proudly. And there's Linda Dessau.
It is quite a long march all the way up, and by the time you get to the steps, if you're carrying a sword, your arm almost falls asleep.
I can imagine. Yes, it's there they go. And then New Zealand return services. It's prominence there as well.
And just coming into shot there is the Afghanistan Veterans, Australia's longest war of 20 years. And the most visible contribution, the code name was Operation Slipper. And, you know, we were there really to provide security, reconstruction and mentor and train the Afghan National Army for many, many years. Been involved in heavy fighting in significant battles, including Operation Anaconda in 2002, Perth 2006, Chora in 2007, Kakarak in 2009, and then culminating in Darapat in 2010, Doan in 2011. We've got the Iraq veterans there. That's stemming back to 2003 all the way to 2011.
We should mention that the other leaders of the march this morning, I mentioned Peter Leafman, it was David Grierson and Gary Taylor, and they were thrilled to have that honour as well, and did a fine job leading things off.
Gary Taylor, Paul, is one of the leaders and presidents, at one stage president of the HMAS Sydney and Vietnam Veterans Logistical Support Group, and we're very proud to have Gary representing our association today.
And David Grierson from the Air Force, Paul, he served about 23 years in the Air Force and has been a past chairman of the Outer Eastern branch of Melbourne Legacy, and he served as president of Melbourne Legacy and the national chairman of Legacy. That's Dave Grierson, OAM.
Let's take a short break and hear from Private Edgar Adams.
Private Edgar Adams, 8th Battalion, was reported missing in action on the day of the Gallipoli landings. Months later, on the 1st of November 1915, a bottle washed up on a beach near Alexandria, Egypt, with a message inside hastily written on a scrap of paper.
I'm prisoner about 2 miles from where we landed. ERC Adams, 8 AIF.
The paper was at first kept by the records office in Cairo, but then eventually sent on to Edgar's father, James Adams, who confirmed that the message was in his son's handwriting. The message offered hope that he may be among the Australians held in Turkey as prisoners of war. His parents began to send letters via the International Red Cross in the hope they would reach him, but the lack of response caused further anxiety. They had already lost Edgar's older brother Frederick, who was shot during the landings at Gallipoli. In July 1918, a court of inquiry recorded the verdict that Edgar died on or about the 25th of April 1915, whilst a prisoner of war in Turkish hands.
If they were prisoners of war at all, it was only for a very short time. It has been found from experience that attempts to ascertain from the Turkish government the fate of men who are supposed to have been captured, but who apparently did not reach any permanent hospital or internment camp, are fruitless.
Edgar's name is listed among the missing on the Lone Pine Memorial. The scrap of paper with Edgar's handwriting was the last trace his parents would ever receive of their son.
It's lovely to have those moments of reflection. We'll have more of those throughout our coverage, which will go until midday in Victoria. So stay with us for the entire march as these bands lead through some famous banners, and you'll be hearing from our expert commentators, Michelle Campbell, Dennis Gist and Chris Hudner. We've seen the operational service veterans since Vietnam come through with Afghanistan, Iraq and the Gulf War. And some peacekeepers have been through as well. And now we start to see the famous names on those banners, Michelle.
Yes, the first one there is the Royal Australian Regiment Association. So the role of the Royal Australian Infantry is to seek out and close with the enemy, kill and capture them, seize and hold ground, repel attack by day and night, regardless of season, weather or terrain. Something that we were committed to memory as a young officer cadet some 30 years ago. So the Royal Australian Regiment has a number of battalions, and you'll be able to see those. The 5th Battalion, there we are, duty first, service throughout Vietnam and Iraq, Solomons, Timor, and the like.
Some smiling faces there. Great to see people enjoying their moment. Of course, it's a solemn occasion for everyone, but also it's a time to catch up with friends and we know that they catch up away from the march too. But yeah, I think it's a real sense of relief here this morning that this march is back on, and people can attend, and there are no restrictions this year. So I think that's being reflected in the numbers already. They were expecting 15,000. It might be more than that for the march. They were expecting 30,000 this morning at the dawn service, and 50,000 people turned up. And the weather will only help the numbers because it's a magnificent morning in Melbourne.
Fantastic roll-up, Paul, isn't it? And just shows the patriotism and the love that people have for Anzac Day and commemorating.
We can see people there with their Richmond scarves on already.
They're ready for the big game, Michelle.
Left over from last night. Yeah, there's another big game coming up. And a good chance to not only wear medals, but some headwear, the hats that are associated to different battalions, and the colours, and also see more of those Vietnam veteran scarves, which you turned up this morning with, Chris, that colourful scarf.
Yes, it's very colourful, Paul, and good on a morning like this morning when it's so cold to wrap around the neck.
Yeah, so it's about 7 degrees this morning, 6 or 7 degrees. But there we go. There's 8 RAR. Some children in there as well. Some family members, no doubt. Isn't that great to see?
It's good to see the family support the veterans. It just perpetuates that commemoration and respect. And we got the 7th Battalion there. And followed by the 9th. You can hear a number of bands there, and we're supported by many bands from schools and local councils. And we just saw the Melbourne College Band and Alumni, and this is their 32nd year. They're formerly from the Croydon Secondary College, and they've marched in the parade under the direction of Viv Doolan, PSM. It's so good to hear those bagpipes, isn't it? It's quite stirring. It gives you the goosebumps. Really sets the tone.
Yeah, the music's great, and oh, there's one of those colourful scarves we're talking about it. And Dennis, there's so many on the march this morning. They're having to pause to wait for things to work through and get up the steps ahead. It really looks like a bumper turnout.
It's going to be great, Paul, isn't it? I just was going to ask you, was the big rollout of Army, Navy, Air Force cadets this year for the march?
Yes, they're supporting. We've got a number of them, and also the Scouts, and they're helping carry the banners and directing people in the in the city in the forming up period.
I think it's tremendous, Paul and Michelle and Chris, their work that the Return Services League at Anzac House and all the managers and crew that get together to put the production together for Anzac Day. It takes many months in the planning, and it's a great job that they do.
And a lot of coordination to put this march on. I mean, we were there at Anzac House on Wednesday night last week to sort of coordinate all the marshals and the order of march and just get it all correct so it just flows seamlessly on the day. Just seen the Commando Association and now the Special Air Service. So the Commando Association was formed in Victorian Incorporated and comprises the 1 Commando Regiment Association, the 2 Commando Company, 126 Signal Squadron, and 2-4 Commando Association.
A very impressive group, Michelle, aren't they?
And the 1966, the SAS squadrons rotated through Vietnam. For 12 months their deployments were, and they withdrew in 1971. Their missions included medium-range reconnaissance patrols, observation of enemy troop movements, and long-range offensive operations and ambushing in enemy-dominated territory.
The Victoria Police Band there, marching out in front of the Victorian Police ex-service personnel who will come through, and that'll be followed by their fire rescue Victoria. An impressive banner there from the police.
So the Victoria Police has many ex-servicemen and women, including protective service officers. Many of the members have served on operations in the Australian Defence Force, and others have served with the Australian Federal Police on international deployment groups such as in Timor, Solomon Islands and Afghanistan.
That military service is a good pre-trainer for the Victoria Police, isn't it?
A number of our Army Reservists are also Victorian Police officers, so yeah.
So the Royal Australian Navy coming up, and Drum Major Chief Petty Officer Robert Flynn. Chief Petty Officer Flynn has been with the Royal Australian Navy Band for 25 years. He has served all over the world on various operational deployments and HMA ships, highlighted by deployments in Iraq, Afghanistan and the Solomon Islands. And the officer in charge is Lieutenant Commander Andrew Stokes. Lieutenant Commander Andrew Stokes has been with the Royal Australian Navy Band for over 30 years. He has had the privilege for serving all over the world, and in particular the highlights were leading the band for Anzac services in Gallipoli in Turkey and in France.
Great to see HMAS Cerberus well represented as always.
It certainly is, Paul. We've got with the HMAS Services, led by Commander Nathan Cole, OAM, Royal Australian Navy, who enlisted in the RAN on 3 July 1996 as a recruit radio operator. Nathan has served on many ships and establishments and first saw operational service in the Solomon Islands in 2000, followed by a number of deployments to Operation Slipper and Catalyst in 2003, 05 and 08. Nathan is the officer commanding Defence Force School of Signals, Maritime Communications and Information Systems Wing at HMAS Cerberus.
Once again, give thanks to the Navy, Dennis, for me being here. My mum and dad met in the Navy.
They sure did, Paul. You're a maritime lad.
I'll take that.
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Australian Youth Band there in their wonderful blue and orange. And some more Navy coming in behind there.
Yeah, it certainly is. We've got HMAS Warramunga coming up behind the youth band.
Gee, it's a great turnout this morning.
It is, and of course HMAS Warramunga served with distinction. Coming up behind Warramunga, as you can see there, they served in New Britain, New Guinea, the Shootan Islands, Philippines, Borneo, Admiralty Islands, Moluccas, Japan, Korea, and Malaya and Fessa. So she had a very distinguished career.
Yeah.
There's some of our cadets helping with the banners. It's a long march, as we said, so it takes a few of them with these larger banners.
We need the Army, don't we, Michelle?
Well, you might see some Naval and Air Force cadets there as well.
Up, yeah.
And there's the Australian Youth Band again. This band has toured extensively through China, North America and Malaysia. Such events as the Calgary Stampede. It is now preparing to tour in Singapore in 2023. The band, the musicians are aged 12 to 28 and they're led by musical director Richard O'Toole.
That's fantastic, isn't it?
Good to see the youth out there.
We've got another naval vessel coming up, the HMAS Manura 2. It should be. What have we got there? I think it's Navy clearance divers.
Yes, the Submarines Association there on screen. Well represented by family as well, and
a very special service, our sailors in the submarine force. Royal Australian Navy, Vietnam. We've got HMAS Sydney, and of course the VLSVA, the Vietnam Logistics Support Veterans Association. And that's the leader of that is Hayden Whitfield, former leading seaman cook, Royal Australian Naval Service, 1966, 1978, 12 years service, served in Vietnam, 1971 and 1972. That's a distinguished rise in rank, Michelle, isn't it?
What's that?
Leading seaman cook Hayden Whitfield.
Very impressive. You can see some people wearing choosing to wear masks this year, and quite a few people really, but
now this is a very special,
like last year.
Paul, this is the very special group we've been waiting for. It's HMAS Hobart is in dock at the moment, or alongside at Station Pier, and there's 150 sailors have joined us today for Anzac Day for the march. And HMAS Hobart 3 is a DDG-39 Hobart-class guided missile destroyer. Its hull was built in Spain and fitted out in Australia. It carries the same pennant number as Hobart 2. It saw service, ships RAN service 2017 to present, complement crew 180. Hobart 3 inherits all battle honours from Hobart 1 and 11. The commanding officer is Andrew Pepper, CSC RAN. Andrew has been awarded two commendations and has been commanding officer of HMAS Hobart since 2020. He joined the Navy in 1999, promoted to sub-lieutenant. In 2001 to 2022, served in HMAS ships Ipswich, Newcastle, Sydney, Diamantina, Darwin, twice, Melbourne and Hobart. In 2005, qualified as Mine Warfare Clearance Diving Officer, serving with CD4 and CD1. 2016, he was then promoted to Commander. He's married with 2 primary school-aged children.
That's a big compliment of sailors.
It's not bad,
Dennis,
Chris, is it?
It's very impressive.
The Navy's might get a few joining up after this.
It's a great turnout, and welcome to Melbourne.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoy your stay.
I think they'll enjoy it very much indeed, Paul.
Well, they look like they're enjoying today, that's for sure.
It'd be worth a visit down there to have a look at Hobart, wouldn't it? HMAS Hobart, that is named after the city of Hobart, Tasmania.
Yes, get down there and take a look. Let's see what Annie is up to. I think she's got a proud family member with her.
But I've been coming since I was a very little girl. And this year is my 76th birthday, so I've been coming ever since I was born.
Happy birthday.
No.
Why do you come to the shrine? Why make the big trek here?
Well, I mean, I saw what it was like after the war in England. I was in England for 2.5 years, just after the war. And I'm very grateful to all those who served. And the only thing I had in common with my father was his war. And he'd talk to me about it and I'd listen. But, yeah.
What are you most looking forward to in the march today?
Seeing 467, 463 Squadron, and my brother, who's fought in Vietnam. I don't remember his. He was in Signals, though.
You're very proud.
I'm proud of my family.
Yes, lovely to hear from the people sitting by and standing by watching the march. And Annie Kearney is our roving reporter today, so we'll cross back a little later to speak to Annie and those people that we can find in the crowd. Dennis, some famous banners coming through there.
Yes, indeed. Just prior to that was the Far East Strategic Reserve Naval Association, which served in Malaya-Borneo conflict, and that was led by Gary Taylor, OAM.
We saw Canimbla go through there.
Yeah, we've got Canimbla coming through. HMAS quick match should be followed up by the Quiberon. They both served with great distinction in their naval careers. The HMAS quick match and Quiberon The leader today is their president, Brian Burdett. 2022 is the 80th anniversary of the commissioning of the Q-class destroyers Isle of Wight, United Kingdom. The Quick Match, HMAS Quick Match, was launched on the 11th of April 1942 and commissioned on the 14th of September in the year 1942. The Royal Australian Navy banners coming through. HMAS Australia, of course, served with great distinction throughout World War II, and particularly in the Pacific in the Battle of Leyte Gulf, where it had the largest, I believe it was the largest kamikaze attack by Japanese aircraft fighter planes in the Pacific campaign. They unfortunately lost quite a number of men. There was 30 died, to my knowledge, and 30 officers and 62 sailors were wounded in the Battle of Leyte Gulf.
We can see the Glen Waverley Secondary College Wind Ensemble. They've participated in the march for the last 8 years, and the school boasts a very large music department with over 400 keen and bright instrumental students.
Fair miles coming up. Patrol boats served right through the World War II. Minesweepers Association. That sorted the boys out from the sailors on those minesweepers.
I can only imagine.
It's incredible when you see the banners and just where they served, that Australia travelled so far, their young men, to participate in these battles right around the world, particularly Europe and throughout the Pacific.
We saw a gentleman there in a wheelchair, and of course it's lovely that family members can make that happen. Some of the diggers that weren't able to march have been driven through in cars already, and that happened towards the start. So they're being looked after at the steps of the shrine and watching their friends and family come through along the way.
Along comes HMAS Stuart steaming along, and the Scrap Iron Flotilla. The leader coming up for HMAS Stuart, the leader is actually Ron Evans, who was a petty officer in the Royal Australian Navy and served in HMAS Stuart II, and now the Vice President of Victoria Council, Naval Association of Australia. The flotilla, Australia's first military deployment of World War II, is made up by 5 destroyers, which is HMAS Stuart, squadron leader, HMAS Waterhen lost in action on 30th of June 1941, HMAS Voyager ran aground, lost 23rd of September 1942, HMAS Vampire lost in action on the 9th of April 1942, and HMAS Vendetta. The next generation of warships after World War II were the 3 Daring-class destroyers, HMAS Voyager, Vampire, with Voyager 2 colliding with the aircraft carrier HMAS Melbourne on 10th of February 1964 and being replaced by the Royal Navy Daring-class destroyer HMAS Duchess. Warships in the flotilla and their namesakes served from the Mediterranean Indian Ocean through to the Pacific Ocean during World War II.
And on screen we have the 4th Brigade. This is Victoria's own brigade, and all the units are marching today. It is led by the Australian Army Band Melbourne, and the officer commanding and music director is Major Steve Cottier. The Band Sergeant Major is Warrant Officer Class 2 Stephen Turner. And the band comprises lots of people from the Australian Army Band and Defence Force School of Music.
That's an impressive showing, Michelle. Have we seen that number of people represented?
From
certainly
the 4th Brigade.
Last couple of years, but even prior to that, I can't remember so many marching at once.
Yes, I think it's been a few years since 4 Brigade has marched. It's certainly pre-COVID. There's about 1,500 personnel from across Victoria in 4 Brigade, and they cover all the corps of infantry, armour, engineers, transport, ordnance, catering, and the electrical and mechanical engineers.
Michelle, could I just pop back in time a little bit? There was a ship, a very important ship. I missed an announcement on it. It's HMAS Canimbla. The leader of that was Stoker Kevin Phillips, World War II, and he served throughout the campaigns, and he's a veteran. He's now aged 97, and I'm pleased to report that he's accompanied by his daughter today.
Very good.
Thank you very much, Dennis. It's great. It's great to mention those distinguished diggers, if I can use that term. And if you're just joining us, you're listening to our expert commentators tell you all about those people who are represented in the march this morning. From the Army, Brigadier Michelle Campbell. Navy is Dennis Gist, and the Air Force is Chris Hudner. The Air Force is yet to come through. We'll hear from Chris there as well.
And we're just seeing the end of the 4th Brigade, who have marched today, and this is steeped in history. We go back to 1912 when it formed as a militia formation. It was reorganised in 1914 as part of the AIF for service in World War I, under the command of Colonel, later General Sir John Monash. So in 1915, elements of the brigade participated in the landing at Gallipoli, embarking on the 8-month campaign.
And a wonderful shot there. Let's leave those pictures and head down with Annie, who's got a serving member.
Joining me now is Commodore Greg York, the most senior naval officer in Victoria. Commodore, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
What's your role today?
So as a senior naval officer of Victoria, I get to represent Navy at this fantastic event. So I this morning had the dawn service, and then we went to the Government House to be greeted by the Governor, and then obviously marched up as part of the VIP party. And now we sit back and enjoy everyone marching past and pay our respects to those that served.
What does Anzac Day mean to you personally?
Well, having been a 40-year career Navy person, it means an awful lot. My grandfather served in the Navy during World War II, so it's time to reflect on their service and the freedoms that they've given us going forward.
And it must be lovely to see all the people here today after the past couple of years.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic to see such a great crowd. And this morning's dawn service, they say there was 45,000, and it was just amazing to look out from the top of the steps there and see it happening. It was unbelievable.
Thank you so much for your time, Commodore. Really looking forward to the rest of the march today.
Thank you.
And thanks to Annie there as well. As the march continues at pace, and a magnificent turnout here at the Shrine of Remembrance. Wonderful weather and great to be back after a couple of years. Interrupted last year and no march the year before. And hasn't there been a magnificent response in 2022?
A wonderful response, Paul, and I think we've all come out of a sort of a coma, haven't we?
And here we have the 1st Armoured Regiment Association, our Black Hats. This was formed in 1946, the association, and they've done service in Vietnam, 1 APC troop, as well as the 2nd and 3rd Cav squadrons that deployed their M113 APCs and deployed with their Centurion tanks.
What a great tank the Centurion in performance was, Michelle.
Do tell me about it, Dennis.
You did a few rides on those?
I've not. I've seen them in the museum.
In the museum.
And this is just the start of the day for all of these people marching. And Chris, I know Chris might talk to you about you are in the commentary box and you miss out on marching, but you catch up with your friends later on.
Oh, we do, Paul.
Yeah.
Yes, it's be good to see them when they come through, and then we'll be having a very short commemoration service at our plaque afterwards, and then lunch in town this afternoon. So it'll be good to catch up with the guys.
Yeah, it's just the start of a terrific day on Anzac Day. Let's go down to Annie again.
Noreen, what does Anzac Day mean to you?
Well, I think it's coming together of all nationalities that take up our country now. And it's an important thing that we do honour. It is holy areas that we're here. And we've all had someone that's been involved in wars.
What's your personal connection to Anzac Day?
My 3rd cousin, because I was born very late in life to my parents, was Major General Stanky. Hildebrand Stanky, and he was in the First World War and went right through till the Second World War, and was very successful. And my son graduated from Duntroon, so he was in the army for a while. So, you know, these are people that you think about today. And I'm ex-TAA crew, and we were loading them up in Queensland to go to Vietnam. And then, of course, when they came back from Vietnam, we had to get them to take their uniform off because they had such a hard time. So, you know, it was a very sad area when we talk about Vietnam.
How important was it for you to come to the shrine to pay your respects in person today?
Because it's the Holy Grail. It's what people put together back in just after the First World War. And of course it was very important for Australians to have something that was going to be concrete. You look around Australia, we have something that's very special here, you know, very, very special.
Interesting to hear that word, the Holy Grail, and Linda Dessau in her speech this morning was speaking about how holy or how sacred the shrine is, and talking about its history and referencing the architects who imagined it being what it is today, I suppose, and a centrepiece and something that is visited upon at least once a year. But certainly people come here all year round.
Absolutely.
To remember family members and to think about war and its place in our history.
Wasn't the design taken from an ancient Greek temple, Paul, for the Shrine of Remembrance?
Yeah.
A great effort in the 1920s to put that together.
Yeah, that's right. It started brick, Dennis.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderfully maintained today, and there are special features and exhibitions always, and different ways of learning about history as well.
Pretty special to Australia.
And in the time, most of the materials used in the shrine are from Victoria, but all the materials are from Australia. So back in those days, where we used to get a lot of things from overseas, particularly Britain, it's good to see that it is Australian made.
Indeed, we had a lot of very good stonemasons back then.
Yes. So leading the Royal Australian Armoured Corps Association is the Box Hill City Band. This band was formed in 1889, and the band has played on Anzac Day every year since 1949. The drum major was Franz Munich, and the musical director is Simon Brown.
We see the distinctive mottos and pictures on the banners as well as the scorpion there, and they're always easily spotted and carried with pride, as are the headwear that we see, berets and the slouch hats. Plenty of slouch hats out there. Some feathers in the slouch hats as well. Michelle, what's the significance of the feathers?
Its origins are back in cavalry, so they are plumes from the emu.
And the light horse in particular, Michelle.
Yes, and Victoria's one is 4th 19th Prince of Wales's Light Horse Regiment. We will see them later on.
Let's move away now and hear from the Governor-General's customary message.
Walk through any town or city in Australia and you will find a war memorial. You may walk past one every day. On Anzac Day, we don't walk past. It's a day when we stop. It's a day when we are drawn to these memorials, to reflect, to remember, and to recognise that memorials both honour those who made the ultimate sacrifice and remind us of who we are. Lest we forget, we hear and say those powerful, emotive words on Anzac Day. But does just saying them make them true? A recent study by Deakin University found that a quarter of people surveyed had little to no knowledge of the Holocaust. That finding should worry all of us. It is dangerous if we forget history, what has shaped us, what drives us, what gives us character. That is why on Anzac Day, and perhaps on other days, we shouldn't walk past memorials. We pause and reflect for different reasons. Some are personal. Growing up in Port Kembla, the War Memorial and Anzac Day meant learning about my relatives who had served. At Duntroon and throughout my time serving in the Australian Army, they represented those who had come before, those I was serving with, those who didn't return, and the families they left behind. Memorials also tell the story of who we were in our darkest hours, the story of who we still are when our backs are against the wall, the story of a people committed to service and putting others before self. Earlier this year, I spoke at the dedication of a memorial to the Australian nurses massacred on Banker Island in 1942. The memorial immortalises the words of the commanding officer, Major Irene Drummond, to the nurses as they face certain death at the hands of the enemy. Chin up, girls. I'm proud of you and I love you. Beyond her remarkable bravery, Major Drummond's words speak to who we are, our values, and who we can be. Committed to service, putting others before self, compassionate, and always, in the face of adversity, a gritty determination to get through. As Linda and I travel around Australia, we see living examples of these characteristics. Major Drummond's words live on. The response to the recent floods in New South Wales and Queensland are a living embodiment of her sentiment and the Anzac legacy writ large in our day-to-day life. So too is the service of ADF personnel on deployment and operations here and overseas. The legacy lives on in the work of veterans who, after their time in uniform, continue to serve and help others. It lives on all around us. In the countless examples we see in communities every day of selflessness, of service, determination to get the job done, and of compassion for others. Anzac Day and the memorials that exist all around Australia are reminders of these characteristics. In honouring the service of our forebears, our modern veterans, and those who continue to serve, we recognise that they embody the characteristics that define us as a nation. Being a veteran is not an identity in and of itself. Veterans are not superheroes. In fact, they are, and I mean this as a compliment, ordinary. They are our daughters and sons, our husbands and wives, loved ones, our parents, our mates, and our colleagues. In the sum of their stories, we see loyalty, compassion, mateship, characteristics that have shaped and are part of who we are as a nation. Characteristics that we see displayed day in, day out in myriad ways in every part of Australia. A single name on a wall of a memorial cannot tell that full story. A single day in the calendar cannot ensure we remember, but they can remind us of who we were, who we are, and who we aspire to be. We must remember, lest we forget.
You're watching the ABC's coverage of the Anzac Day March as we watch more participants head up to the Shrine of Remembrance. Powerful words there from the Governor-General, David Hurley, and a reminder of how much community plays its part in this day. Of course, some will be marching at local RSLs in different suburbs around the city, or indeed in their local towns around the state of Victoria, and the centrepiece might be that memorial that he talked about. So, and a good reminder there too to learn as much about history as you can, and what a great day for that as well.
Very important, Paul, and I think we'll see some record turnouts of veterans and their families right around Australia at their RSLs for the Anzac Day, and particularly the dawn services this morning. Just like to mention, if I may, Paul, the Shrine trustees, and what a marvellous job they do in keeping this fantastic special area, our sacred ground here at the Shrine of Remembrance, in the tip-top order that they do. And I'd like to send a big compliment to the team, and particularly to former Captain Scott Bowater, who was a former commander of HMAS Cerberus, later officer commanding Royal Australian Naval bases throughout Australia. He's now, I believe, the president of the Shrine Trustees.
And here we have the tunnel rats. So around 700 tunnel rats served in Vietnam, specialising in tunnel and bunker searching, mine and booby trap delousing, demolitions and bomb disposal.
Great to see always the great contingent. There's Butch Date, Jim Murrett is there as well, and leading the tunnel rats this morning, Tom Vallis, who I'm told is the top trainer at the School of Military Engineering at Holsworthy. So a terrific honour for Tom Vallis there, and leading some proud Vietnam vets.
That certainly takes a lot of courage to get down in those tunnels, Paul.
An unthinkable task for someone like me, Dennis. I cannot imagine what they went through.
Terrible. Of course, the booby traps that were waiting for them as well.
Indeed. But I know that the Butch and all of the tunnel rats love this day. And, you know, they get ready for it. And they're all, you know, proud service people at their local RSLs too, and get their communities involved year-round in all of their various projects.
Highly commendable, isn't it?
Rounds of applause that will last for 3 hours as those marches come past, and people taking their place, and you see them right at the dawn service. Some people they get those chairs or the spots on the fence, and they will not give it up. It's prime posse.
They've claimed their spot.
And it's great, Paul, to see so many descendants and relatives of the former serving members who are marching today. It's a great sight.
It certainly is, Chris. And a lot of them have been carrying the banners too.
Yeah.
Now we've got 85 Transport Platoon, good turnout there. They served in Vietnam from 67 to 71. And they had a range of trucks carrying cargo, water, tippers or dump trucks, and tank transporters. They're also known as the Road Runners, and currently they are part of the 26 Transport Squadron, 9 Force Support Battalion in Amberley.
HMAS Sydney was, of course, involved right through the Vietnam War, and was lovingly known as the Vung Tau Ferry, Michelle.
Yes.
Yes, so a really strong contingent there of marchers, recognising their service in Vietnam. And I cannot remember in previous years such a strong turnout. So must have been waiting for the green light. Restrictions easing in Melbourne just recently, and making this all possible as well.
A great representation, isn't it?
Now we've got the 4th Brigade, and that's being led by Brigadier Matt Burr, and you can see the 5th 6th Battalion Royal Victoria Regiment, pipes and drums again. And this will be quite a large contingent, and my apologies, before that formed body was the Forces Command Training Centres. We are now going into the 4th Brigade.
So the march there stretching all the way back. If you haven't been here and don't know what the route is, see the Art Centre back there? You can see the spire just bobs up to the left, and they start all the way back at Flinders Street station there. So it's quite a long march, and no one looks exhausted by the time they get here, because it's such a proud moment. But it's quite a feat for some people, particularly the elderly veterans.
A great effort. It's very reminiscent of the old Anzac days, isn't it, to some extent?
So I mentioned earlier that the 4th Brigade was formed in 1912 and saw a lot of service in the First World War, but they were active in the Second World War as well, and they were dispatched to Milne Bay, New Guinea, and then later New Britain campaign. So since the 1990s, the 4th Brigade has contributed to deployments in Bougainville, East Timor, Solomon Islands, Iraq, Afghanistan and Sudan. They have ongoing commitments to the Rifle Company Butterworth in Malaysia and Operation Resolute in support of the Maritime Border Command. The Brigade has also provided much assistance to the civil community during the 2003 Alpine fires, 2006 Gippsland fires, 2009 Victorian fires, and of course the 2011 and 12 floods. Recently, over the last few years, the Brigade has contributed to Operation Bushfire Assist 19 and 20, and during the 2021 storms. During COVID, they've provided assistance in support of the Victorian Government for Ambulance Victoria, Victorian Police, Department of Health and the Victorian aged care sector.
It's great to hear that report, Michelle, and to think that the armed services just don't serve in wars. They're here during peacetime to serve their country as well.
And that's exactly right. I mean, it's an army for the nation, but it's also an army in the community. And I think during over the last couple of years with the pandemic, it's really come to the fore that, you know, service to the nation, whether it's offshore or in our backyard, is absolutely fantastic. To see so many young men and women support their local communities.
Yeah, very impressive.
Some great formation and marching this year as well. I'm sensing that the Army is really taking it up to the Navy, Dennis. And,
they certainly are. It's a challenge here, isn't it?
Yeah. Not that there's ever any rivalry between the armed services.
Never at all, no.
Not at all.
I'll tie me in knots before I get out of here.
But it's a very high standard, and they look great. Magnificent.
A tremendous turnout by the Army indeed.
Got some engineers and then a few from Melbourne University Regiment.
Those are the swords you were talking about, Michelle.
Yes.
They'd be heavy. Heavier than they
they're
look.
not that heavy, but
No,
when you march for you know, all that time, by the time you get to the forecourt up here, your arm is quite sore. But it's all worth it, of course. You're very proud.
I'm glad we can see this this shot here. This is the forecourt that you mentioned. You can see the eternal flame off to the left, and yeah, there's a really strong build-up. All of those marches, they finish here and then they disperse and go and do what they want with the rest of the day. But in fact, a lot of them will stay and they'll watch the other marches come through. So it's a great community feel.
The last time I marched here was the Welcome Home Parade for the Afghanistan Veterans back in 2015.
Yeah.
And marching up, as you can see here, was just such a proud moment. And lined on the left and right there were Vietnam vets. And they were clapping us to welcome us home because they didn't want the same, you know, discourse that they had received back when they came home. So towards the end of the parade, when we fought out, you know, there were lots of hugs, lots of tears with all the Vietnam veterans, and it was just such a special moment, that Welcome Home Parade back in 2015.
Interesting to say that, Michelle, I was part of that 1987. We had to wait to 1987 in Sydney when we had the major Welcome Home Parade of 50,000 Vietnam veterans, Navy, Army and Air Force were officially welcomed home, and that exactly what you just said was an incredible feeling as you marched along, and the feeling of the crowd, of you know, the emotions were running very high, and particularly amongst the troops themselves, the veterans, and really made you feel like that you'd accomplished something and you were part of the Australian family.
Yeah. Well, gave you permission to feel the pride.
Indeed, Paul,
in your service. Yes. Let's hear now from Annie, who is our roving reporter and has a VIP.
I'm with Major General Andrew Bottrell, who is the most senior officer in Victoria. General, thank you for joining me. What does Anzac Day mean to you?
Look, it's an opportunity for, I think, for anyone who served or had a relation who served in our Defence Forces to be able to think about their own service and that of their families and what service has meant to the nation.
And what is your role in the military at the moment? I hear it was a short trek to come down to the shrine today.
That's correct. So I just work across at Victoria Barracks, literally across the road. So at the moment I head up our acquisition for land material for the services. And one of the roles that we're doing at the moment is identifying and getting equipment ready to be able to send to the Ukraine.
A very important role at the moment, and it must feel very significant to be doing that while you're here at Anzac Day services.
Yeah, look, it's another way of serving. At the moment, it's about identifying and delivering real capability to the men and women of the ADF. And in this case, the government has seen fit to send equipment to support the Ukraine. And it's nice to be part of a nation that's able to do that.
We're hearing lots of applause at the moment. It must feel nice to have people here watching the march in person.
Yeah, look, it is. And this morning, I think there was an estimate of somewhere between 40 and 50,000 at the dawn service. And I remember even prior to COVID that the crowd wasn't that large. So it was lovely to be able to see Melbournians and Victorians and Australians and visitors to be able to come back out and commemorate what is still a really important day. In fact, I'd say it's even more important for community now than it was perhaps in the past.
It does feel very, very special to be here today, doesn't it? Thank you so much for your time, General.
Pleasure,
enjoy the rest of your
Thanks
march.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to Annie. Great to have those interviews coming through as the march continues. And yes, we're all blown away by the contingent this year, and it's been impressive. Of course, the march will go for another, at least an hour and a half. Our coverage will last till 12 o'clock. By the way, if you are heading out to, you have to take off and you want to go down to your local and be there for those services, suburban or in the country, you can always watch the entire march on ABC iView, so you won't miss a second. You can watch it later on if you like. So we see some more famous names on those banners and some children accompanying the veterans.
I agree with you, Paul. I think it's the whole march is beyond expectation today, isn't it? Just tremendous.
So some mates enjoying their time, enjoying the applause.
It's a chest full of medals, I think you saw just a little while ago, Paul.
And a bit of a...
That's for sure.
A list to port there, Chris.
Yes. Sounds like a nautical term, that does.
I wonder when that came from. Look at the Wrens Association, the Women's Royal Australian Naval Service, was formed in 1941 after the outbreak of World War II, with women being employed in a variety of positions. In 1951, the first of the peacetime members of the RANS, or the Women's Royal Australian Naval Service, were enlisted. By 1959, the RANS became part of the permanent naval forces and served in all naval establishments around Australia with the same conditions of service and employment opportunities as their male counterparts. In 1985, women became fully integrated into the Royal Australian Navy. Thus, the RANS were disbanded by an Act of Parliament. Women now currently serve alongside other members of the Royal Australian Navy as equals.
It's hard to believe. I joined the Army in 1989, and it was only just prior to that, a few years, that women and men were in the same army.
Extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, my lifetime.
Saw the sappers come through there.
It's the TS Voyager Naval Reserve Cadets carrying the banner there from Williamstown. It's a tremendous opportunity, Paul, isn't it, to have Naval Reserve Cadets, Army Cadets, Air Force Cadets, where they can get this preliminary training if they decide they want to take on the career in the military. They've got a good background from it.
Yep.
We just saw the Corps of Commissionaires Association, and those members are from World War II all the way through to Timor and peacekeepers. So they provide welfare services, transition from service to civilian life support. They provide general support through the Veterans Centre and sponsorship and support of many cadet services. Now now we're heading into World War II. So this is the 1 Corps, 2nd AIF.
Yes, I think it's good for the youngsters to be here, Dennis. I think and some of those cadets have, you know, they're just making their way, and it helps them to understand that this is a you know, a future that they've got, that people hold in high esteem, and it's much needed and much appreciated.
It is, Paul. It gives them a chance to be part, particularly with Anzac Day and other commemorations, to mingle with other veterans and talk with them and to find out their life stories. And I think if they consider going into the Royal Australian Navy, Army, Air Force, that they've got that pre-training. And I think even if they don't, they've got that early discipline and learning to work with other people as a team.
Yeah, some great values to carry through life, and there is, and plenty of career pathways as well.
Now we can see some descendants from the 211 Field Regiment, Royal Australian Artillery, based in Darwin. They had the 18-pounders.
Darwin Fortress. We saw the Prime Minister giving an address from Darwin this morning too.
It was only mobilised for the Second World War, so it was disbanded in 1945.
We don't hear a lot about the Darwin defenders, do we? And they really gave their all in the defence of Darwin.
Absolutely. On
those northern shores. And the heavy attacks that took place from the Japanese Air Force at the time.
Yeah, perhaps doesn't get as mentioned as much as other battles, but oh no, it was there was some fierce action there, and
sure was.
Yeah.
So there's the 22 Heavy Anti-Aircraft Regiment Association. They had 3 batteries, approximately 1,000 men, and they sailed to the Middle East the 5th of February 1941. They fought against Italians, Vichy, French and Germans. They returned to Australia in March 1942. There's more Cavalry Commando Regiment. We've had a couple of people in wheelchairs, and certainly the RSL has put on, or coordinated 126 buses to bus people into this march. And they've been cycling through, so you will see some people that have come through and then come back again, so particularly the bands.
Yep.
So some terrific support from PTV there.
Yeah, and descendants marching for veterans of even World War I. It's a lovely thing to do, I think, to see those people of all ages. Doesn't have to be the kids. It's just people in middle age who are learning more about their family history and decided that they want to take part in some way, here or at other marches.
And certainly the Shrine is very active in that. They partner with some schools, so the schools can actually adopt a unit and keep that history alive. And here we have the RACV supporting the march with a digger in that vehicle.
Making sure we can see the colours on the slouch hat.
It pays to advertise, Paul, doesn't it?
Yeah, terrific. Even that to organise the cars to be in the middle of the marches as well. It's there's a ramp up there that the cars make their way forward, just on the side of the steps. More descendants coming through there. We see some of those banners with the battles on them.
It really makes you very proud to be an Australian today on Anzac Day, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, Dennis. I think, well, we saw that a couple of years ago where everyone was locked down, but they still made sure that they went out front, and we saw that. So we'll probably never forget that strange feeling of going and doing it out the front of your house. But
that's right.
There's nothing like coming together, and you know, it's a very special day.
Yeah, 2020. My house was on a corner, and we went right on the corner, and you could see candles all the way up one street and down the other street. It was quite extraordinary to see people actually coming out of their house, and a bit of solidarity and respect.
It's a great reassurance, Michelle, isn't it, to see that? The lights haven't gone out.
No.
Annie Kearney is our roving reporter today, and she's got another special guest to talk to.
I'm here with the Colquhoun family who have dressed beautifully for Anzac Day and for this occasion. Luke, what's your connection to Anzac Day?
So I've served with Army Reserve in the Solomon Islands, and then also served with the Air Force and Victoria Police as well. So I've got a bit of connection. I've pretty much marched ever since then here at Melbourne. So.
And you've dressed very smartly for today, but not as smartly as your son Spencer, who's 15 months old and looks amazing. Mum Beck, tell me what he's wearing.
So his nana has made him a gorgeous little outfit out of one of Luke's old Army Reserve shirts.
It must feel really special being here with Luke for the march and seeing Spencer in that outfit.
Most definitely, yes it is. Yep.
Luke, how does it make you feel?
Very proud, yeah, proud day.
And what are you most looking forward to in the march today?
I guess one of the favourite things is catching up with a lot of the guys we haven't seen, and especially because of COVID, so it'd be a good catch up with a lot of the fellas.
Well, enjoy the rest of your day. We are very much looking forward to Spencer here showing us the best he's got in his outfit a little later. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Young Spencer pretty switched on too to the questions and answers, and a firm grip of Dad's tie. No doubt it's the start of him understanding in some small way, but then learning along as he gets older the importance of Anzac Day, and his mum and dad and everyone know that it's so important.
Good to see the Scouts coming along there.
Yes, helping out. A really strong contingent, though. I saw a big bunch of them around the flame earlier trying to thaw out when the sun was coming up.
It was a bit of a chill factor early this morning.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah, it was not as cold as I've had it before, but just a reminder that it's late April. Speaking of which, there's another anniversary coming up, Dennis. We mentioned the Vietnam Veterans, 60 years since the start of our engagement in Vietnam, but there's another anniversary in a week or so.
There sure is, Paul, and folks, that's the 80th anniversary, 2022, of the Battle of the Coral Sea. This date marks one of Australia's most important national occasions. It marks the anniversary of the first major military action that Australian and New Zealand forces fought during the Second World War. The Battle of the Coral Sea took place during the 4th to the 8th of May 1942. It was a major naval battle in the Pacific theatre of World War II between the Imperial Japanese Navy and naval and air forces from Australia and the United States of America, resulting in a strategic Allied victory and reversing the tide of World War II in the Pacific. If you'd like to participate in this and be there, the commemoration service is for Sunday, May 1. That's May the 1st of this year, of course, 2022. It starts at the Shrine of Remembrance at St Kilda Road. The time is 11:30 a.m. for a 12 p.m. start. And they mention here too that there is still a requirement for all those attending the service will need to show vaccination status to enter the shrine for the commemoration service of the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Coral Sea.
Thank you for that. Yes, every year we have those anniversaries, and yeah, 80 years. There we go.
Incredible.
Some recognition of those battles from World War II and those banners that go through. New Guinea featuring heavily there. We saw Milne Bay before, of course, which was another victory that was really important at that time.
It really comes home to you, Paul, doesn't it, when you sit here and you're watching the march happening, the event take place, and you see the depth of involvement of Australian forces from, right from World War I, Boer War, but right through to the current day, what we've done and participated as a nation. Yeah.
It's great to see all those associations are still kept alive and relevant, Paul, with the families and descendants of the various associations still going. As the numbers of active service members decreases, they seem to get picked up very quickly by their families. So it's tremendous to see.
I think it's a key thing myself, Chris, to see the descendants getting involved so much and playing a great role for the future.
And I also think that when we see the children down there, it's a reminder that schools take a big part in this too, and recognising them with good history programs and making sure that they encourage the younger people to search through their family tree and learn about what their ancestors have done. Let's go down to Annie again, who's got another interview for us.
I'm here with Group Captain Philip Trigg, who is representing the most senior Air Force member in Victoria. Philip, what does Anzac Day mean to you?
Well, I think Anzac Day, Annie, is an opportunity to remember all of those who have served before us and those who are currently serving the ADF overseas.
And what is your role that you do at the moment?
So my current job is Chief of Staff of Air Force Training Group. Air Force Training Group's headquarters is based here in Laverton in Melbourne.
So a short trip down to the shrine this morning.
That's right.
What does it feel like seeing all these people around at the march after a couple of years of really small or no services?
Well, I think it's really highlighting the fact that it's such a privilege to be able to have the chance to recognise and remember these significant occasions. And I think people across Australia, and particularly in Victoria, are really appreciating the opportunity to be able to get out and do that in person.
How does it get emotional for you today, seeing all these people? I mean, I had a tear in my eye at the dawn service. How do you feel about it?
I just don't think you can help but feel emotional on occasions like this, especially during the dawn service. And a particularly emotional moment for me in all of these occasions is the last post and the reveille, and also the singing of the national anthem. I think that they are truly significant occasions, and most people would appreciate that and rise to that as well, I think.
I expect that they do, and I can see a lot of people standing around looking quite emotional now. Enjoy the rest of your day, Philip. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Annie.
Thanks, Philip, and thanks, Annie, as we see the 39th Battalion come through there, Michelle, and well, their magnificent part in World War II on the Kokoda track.
That's right. They were the first to halt the Japanese advance. They captured Kokoda village and airfield in August 42. They delayed the advance for 5.5 weeks, and they saved from annihilation by the 2nd, 14th in Ishirava. They're the only unit to have Kokoda as a battle honour. They were so devastated by our campaign. It was disbanded 20 months after it was raised.
Yeah, great story of Australian history there. And for the chocolate soldiers, I thought that they'd melt under pressure. But in fact, it was the opposite was true.
Stalwart heroes, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's been a rite of passage for some people to go and walk the Kokoda track as well, to see exactly the terrain.
And they were led by the Kui Rup Secondary College Marching Band, and they've been marching since 1999. One of the youngest members of that band is 8 years old.
8 years old?
Yeah.
That's starting an early apprenticeship.
That's it.
Keeping an eye out for the flyover too. Well, Chris, we're on active watch for that flyover to come.
They do time it, Paul, to coincide with the arrival of the Air Force contingent, so hopefully it'll be on time today. Just before 11 o'clock, that's due.
Engineers coming through there in the 2nd, 4th as well. went and walked the Kokoda track in 2004, I think it was, with some family members whose grandfather was in the second 14th. So, yeah, I'd be interested to... And here comes the second 14th on cue now. In fact, my cousin, who I walked the Kokoda track with, met his future wife, and they've now got 3 kids. They met at a second 14th gathering because both of their grandparents were, grandfathers were in the second 14th. So
that's incredible.
There you go. A love story born of Anzac Day gatherings.
Meant to be.
And I'm sure the famous colours there of the second 14th mean so much to them and other families and descendants.
That must have been an amazing experience for you, Paul, to do the Kokoda trail or track.
Yeah, I just felt honoured being there and reading about the history.
Considering how they fought, I mean, in such terrible circumstances.
Yeah. And one of the things that resonates, we've just seen the 39th and the 2nd 14th come through, was the 39th Battalion seeing the 2nd 14th arriving. You know, and they'd been fighting in the Middle East, and they talked about this phenomenal, tall and, you know, battle-hardened soldiers that had come to save the day. Of course, wasn't that easy, but
no,
that's...
With the cavalry coming over the hill.
That's right, yeah. Coming through the jungle.
That's right. With great difficulty.
Indeed. Second 16th, of course, has the Kokoda Trail there as well, and they were part of that.
The malaria was a terrible thing up there at the time too, Paul, wasn't it?
Yeah, and
a lot of casualties.
Yes, well, disease and getting supplies in as well.
Indeed.
We should recognise the Papua New Guineans. It would be it's a special occasion as well. Whenever we mention the Australian soldiers, we should mention the partnership between the two countries.
There was great support from them.
There are all sorts of different ways to to go overseas, and we always see that the French battlefields and people setting out and putting that on their bucket list too, to go over there and learn more about Australia's service over there. And we'll be seeing later on services in Gallipoli and in France, and all of that is part of the Anzac Day commemoration.
It really comes home to you when you make those visitations, Paul. I had the honour to go to Gallipoli on a private visit in the year 2000.
Yes.
And be there for the dawn service, which was absolutely amazing at Anzac Cove, and up to Lone Pine for the second service, and be amongst so many thousands of Australians that had attended. It was quite incredible. But to be there on the beach at Anzac Cove and try to visualise what it must have been like for those soldiers, incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine it would be a life-changing experience.
Here we have the 2nd Pioneer Battalion. Looks like it's a community of spirit. They're all wearing the same colours in their scarf. So they served in the Syrian campaign in February 42. Oh, sorry, May 40 to February 42. They returned to Australia only to go to Java to assist the Dutch against the Japanese. They were overrun, vastly bigger force, and they spent the rest of the war as POWs. The battalion later reformed and then served in New Guinea, Tarakan and Balakan.
Were they kept in Changi prison camp, Michelle, during that period?
Unknown.
A lot were shipped to Japan as well, weren't they, to be interned there?
Yes, and we're not far here from the great statue of Weary Dunlop, which is, well, if you can imagine looking at the screen there, we're a bit off to the left in the parkland. And one of the more famous prisoners of war.
He was a tall man amongst men, wasn't he, Paul? I mean,
He's a tall man, and it's a tall statue, and
it is indeed.
I think it might be life size.
And a lovely gentleman to speak to.
Yeah, great Australian.
I know when you hear interviews with veterans that served who were prisoners in Changi at the time, Paul, they all speak so highly of him, of Weary.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, his leadership and outlook on life were phenomenal.
Absolutely.
So we saw the 2nd, 14th there again. So Private Bruce Kingsbury was awarded the first Victoria Cross, awarded for a service on Australian soil. Coming up with the 8th signals. And we're moving into the 8th Division. So of course, the 2nd AIF, 1 Corps actually had a number of divisions. Before World War II, it was 4 divisions, and then it became 3.
Yeah, we'll see the 8th Division signals come through, the 2nd 21st Infantry Battalion, 2nd 22nd as well, and the 2nd 40th. And so they'll come through there, and there's more and more descendants taking their part on the Anzac Day March in Melbourne.
2nd 21st is also known as the Gulf Force. They were formed in Victoria, in Trawool, which is central Victoria, in 1940. They moved to Darwin before they embarked to Ambon.
Recognition there of the 13th Australian General Hospital. And plenty of applause there for those marchers. Great time to catch up and share stories and
reminisce.
Well, yeah, it's, reminisce and talk about your families with great pride, and yeah, that's all part of the day too. Those youngsters will be, someone will explain to them why they're wearing the medals and what that means.
Good to see he's got his walking stick. As we said before, it is quite a long march from the form-up points in the CBD along Swanson Street and Collins Street there to walk all that way. Good on you, mate.
Good effort, isn't it?
That is a great effort.
Had a hearty breakfast this morning, I think, Michelle.
Well, and if you didn't, just follow the smell of bacon and sausages and eggs and everything that's being served up. The barracks across the road always have a good breakfast out the front.
Yeah.
Plenty of different outfits these days with the poppies too. That we had the poppy scarves, which everyone was wearing a couple of years ago, and there's some shirts. They look lovely. Our ABC camera is doing a great job there too, making sure that that the marchers know where to look and give a wave for those people watching at home who want to spot some family and friends.
So there we've just seen the 2nd 9th Field Ambulance was set up in St Andrew's Church, the unit flag on top of the church in Singapore, and later bombed and overrun by Japanese. The flag was recovered from a pile of rubbish by a unit member, Bill Ritchie, and would fly in Changi for the next 3.5 years until it was too weathered. Hidden by Major Forsyth and repatriated to Australia at the end of the war. It's been carried by unit members and their descendants on every Anzac Day march since. The unit motto is, "The show goes on."
If you're just joining us, you're watching the Anzac Day March. Brigadier Michelle Campbell, Dennis Gist and Chris Hudnett are our experts commentators today. And Annie Kearney is moving around among the crowd. She's got another guest for us.
Anzac Day is a very special and important day to me. I have a grandfather who served in World War II, and I'm coming up to my 30th year of service for Defence. To me, it's all about recognising those members that have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, and I like to think about all the things that are important to our country and my service, so Anzac Day is one of my favourite days of the year.
And Bella, what does today mean to you? What does today mean?
Say Anzac Day?
Anzac Day.
Anzac Day?
Yeah.
And are you proud of your mum?
Yeah.
You bet she is. That's Claire Baker speaking to Annie Kearney.
There's the eternal flame, always burning, and one of the Shrine Guards. Just there on the forecourt where the march ends.
There you go. There's a nice sweep there, and that's the ramp that they put in that I was mentioning earlier, and people gathering around. And you can go into the shrine and that's all well set up for people to take the opportunity to go inside.
It's a great image there of the shrine, because underneath is the galleries of remembrance, and that galleries are right from the Boer War all the way through to current serving operations. It's a fantastic walk under there in the crypt.
It's magnificent, isn't it? And there's a museum part there too, and there's actually one of the landing boats that took the soldiers ashore at Anzac Cove in Gallipoli in World War I.
Might be moving on and seeing the 9th Division come through. There we go, the start of the 9th Division. And see the second 43rd and the second 23rd and second 24th will be behind them as well. Plenty of bagpipes. The bagpipe player this morning that they perched virtually atop the shrine had the best view of Melbourne that you can get. And it was one of the best moments of the dawn service this morning, I've got to say.
Couldn't have got a better day than this morning, and the whole Anzac Day, Paul. It's just magnificent. Tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, the Shrine Guards, is the uniform they wear, Michelle, is that the light horse uniform?
From the First Order.
It is,
yes.
yeah.
And if people, you obviously have to sign up and let people know that you're, that the RSL know that you're marching, Michelle. But are descendants able to do that quite easily?
Well, that's what they're encouraged to do, yes. There's a registration process, and that is part of all the COVID protocols as well, but it's really just for the leaders to register, so then they've got contact with everybody.
Yep.
There's the 9th Division Sappers. You can see they've served Libya, Tobruk, El Alamein, Palestine, Syria, and then later New Guinea and Borneo. To see a couple of World War II diggers there. We do have a couple of 102-year-olds and one 104 apparently.
That is amazing. See people carrying photographs as well. I know that was a point of contention many years ago when people started doing that. Framed photographs, even if what we saw a collection of little pictures before. There we go. I like it. I think it's good, and I think sometimes those images, bring back history as well. So I'm not a traditionalist.
I like the photos. I just don't like the frame, because I've gone, into mum mode. What if it fell? Glass everywhere.
You've got to be careful.
Just think of the kids. Yeah.
Seeing Tobruk on some of those banners coming through, Paul, reminds me I was privileged to attend the Rats of Tobruk Association commemoration just a little while ago, and I think it was the first year they've not had any actual Rats of Tobruk people there.
Yeah.
Serving people.
Yeah.
So it just shows you that time is marching on, and the association is still alive and very well attended.
What did you think about that, Chris, when you realised that there are no Rats of Tobruk turning up to those?
Yeah, it's very sad, I guess, in some respects, but yeah, they normally in the past they've had somebody there representing the people that were serving.
There's Wangaratta's own, the second 24th. I can tell you, I saw last week there was a wonderful mural for that battalion at the Wangaratta Showgrounds out the front of where they play the football there, the Wang Magpies. So it's a beautiful mural there right on a corner where it's got a lot of traffic coming past.
It's terrific to hear, because they were mobilised in July 40 and disbanded in 46, so they saw service at many places. So great to see that they've got a memorial in their own hometown.
Yeah, it gives that attachment to country towns with history to international conflicts and wars. And they can be very proud of that too. Second 48th. Tobruk mentioned there as well, Chris.
Yes, there's a few of the banners.
Some very famous fought-out names there, Paul, isn't there?
They were part of the first and second battles of El Alamein before returning to Australia, only to then go on to New Guinea following Japan's entry into the war. They took part in the advance on Lae during the Salama Lu campaign, and fighting around Finschhaven and Saddleberg during the Huon Peninsula campaign.
Do they cover Milne Bay as well, Michelle? They landed there?
No, it doesn't say that,
No.
but they went on to the landing of Tarakan, which was their final involvement in the war.
Incredible effort, wasn't it?
Yeah.
From the European theatre then to Pacific.
Yes.
What do you think the future is for the modern associations whose veterans have now all died? I think it's really important to keep those going.
I think it should be kept going, Paul. We've still got a lot of service personnel and ex-service personnel who can carry on, but it's very noticeable, of course, on Anzac Day, when you see the numbers of World War I, World War II, Korea, and even now with Vietnam, the diminished numbers, and in some cases there's none at all. So I think it's important for our veterans to carry it on, current day veterans and their descendants.
Yeah.
I think this is where the schools, where they're adopting a unit and keeping that unit history alive, is perpetuating that commemoration. And
that's a good idea to have specific schools adopting those. It's a great idea. It's a great thing.
It's vital, I think, Paul and Michelle, isn't it? Because they're, where you're going to get this education or learning about our veterans and the wars we've been in.
Yeah, we heard David Hurley, the Governor-General, say before in his very powerful remarks that, they're doing research now and some people don't know all that much about World War II.
No.
And the point of, and how it all began. So
I think a visit up to the Canberra War Museum in Canberra at ACT or even to the Shrine of Remembrance can help give them that little bit of education. It's missing, isn't it? particularly from the schools.
So you saw a few dog walkers earlier too, people their dogs on a short leash. There's all sorts of people making their way down.
On special operations. Covertly. That's it, I've got it.
24th Infantry Battalion was originally raised in 1915 for service in World War I, but it's marching here in the World War II area because in 43 they're allocated to the 15th Brigade of the 3rd Division, and they were deployed to New Guinea before taking part in the Bougainville campaign. It was disbanded in 1946. A number of battle honours there. And those battle honours are maintained by the 5th 6th Battalion Royal Victoria Regiment. We saw marching earlier as part of 4 Brigade, and also their pipes and drums that led the march.
And marching and walking along very proudly, Michelle. Something I didn't mention earlier, and it just came to mind, and a very important piece of Royal Australian Navy history, is the saga of one of our sailors from World War II in the Pacific Theatre, who paid the supreme sacrifice, and that was Teddy Sheehan, who served on the HMAS Armidale when it was sunk in battle, and he was not recognised for a Victoria Cross, and only in recent times that, after a lot of representation that's happened, that he now has been awarded the Victoria Cross, and it means so much to the Sheehan family. So it was great to see that happen.
I think he continued to man his gun, I think, at the time while the ship was sinking.
Right, Chris, yeah, he actually left the ship when it was sinking. It was beyond saving. Got into one of the boats, and they were being strafed by Japanese fighter aircraft, and he decided on impulse to get back on board and got behind an Oerlikon gun and kept firing. And his mate said that as he disappeared under the ship under the water, the Oerlikon was still firing, and he shot down, I think, 2 or 3 Japanese aircraft.
Would have taken a lot of work to get that VC then.
Incredible, yes.
Yeah,
so
an examination of history. Is that all it took, or
it was
jumped through a few hoops to
yeah,
to
it was looked over for a long time, Paul, and ignored. But family and veterans who knew him and fought for years and years, and at last it did happen, and the VC was awarded.
Yeah. Yep, excellent. Great that young man can walk on behalf of his loved one as well.
I think the medals are showing in the photograph of being worn on the right-hand side by the descendant.
We've got the 8th Infantry Battalion there. It was first raised in 1914, so this has seen service in Gallipoli, France, Belgium, Western Front. In 1921 it was re-raised as a militia, and you can see there on the banner the campaign where they've served, Bougainville campaign.
Let's hear from Annie now, who's got a Vietnam veteran.
What does Anzac Day mean to you?
Everything really, because it reflects right back the whole nature of Australian history and the way Australians live, and that's what it's all about.
How do you feel when you come down here today?
Sad in many ways, because we lost 3 very, very good men in Vietnam, and I think they still live with us.
Yes, and hearing some of the emotion of the day there as well. Back to the pipe bands, and some of the older banners will then come through after that. Youngsters from Haileybury College doing their thing. They're preparing wonderfully for this occasion. School goes back this week in Victoria. This is officially the end of school holiday. seeing some of the other divisions represented through their banners now. 3rd Division and the 5th and 11th Division. Milne Bay there, another one represented on the banner. As well as some of those Middle Eastern battles.
I must apologise, Paul. I did admit in mentioning Commander Martin Holzberger. Commander Martin Holzberger, AM, CSE, RAN, joined the RAN in 1987 as an underwater control submariner working on both the Oberon and Collins class submarines. And he was with the leading in the HMAS Cerberus contingent.
Yep. I don't know how they allocate the cars, but the red convertible might have been one of the most popular. Today, when the sun came out, a nice ride.
Scotch College pipe band, very, very good indeed.
Well, their band was, well, pipes and drums were formed in 1946 to complement the school's Army Cadet Corps. They wear the Gordon tartan, very the same as 5.6, which has been Victoria's military tartan.
Very impressive, Michelle.
So the boys in the band enjoy competing in pipe band competitions, and currently the band is the Australian champions of the juvenile grade, as well as the Victorian champions in the novice juvenile A and novice juvenile B divisions. In 2014, the band travelled to Scotland to compete at the World Pipe Band Championships, winning the piping and achieving an overall 4th place, the highest placing by an Australian school band to date. In 2019, the band won the European Championships in the novice B grade, the first and only Australian school band to win any major championship in the UK.
That's fantastic achievement, Michelle and Paul, isn't it?
Yeah, well done.
Incredible.
Of course, Scotch College, one of the schools that once called public schools that would have been churning out cadets well before World War I in Australia in the 19th century. And the world was very different.
It certainly was. It's hard to think that before Federation with Australia, we had all the, of course, the different states, and each state had its own military, like it had its own navy, like we had the HMNVS, was it Cerberus, the old Cerberus, unfortunately met a terrible fate down at Black Rock there.
Yeah.
But hard to believe that they were all separate forces.
Yeah, that's right. Various militia, I guess, was.
Yeah.
But being sort of formally trained.
Even the rail gauge was different.
Yeah. so that's the wreck off Black Rock.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Would have been good to salvage it.
Most people would know that. Some more young people carrying their photographs through there.
Milne Bay there.
There's the Heavy ACAC Association. They served in Port Moresby. They had 100 aircraft raids. Milne Bay, Lae, Oro Bay, Chakra Bay, Rabaul, New Britain. They were also, they had 4 batteries in Darwin and Fenton Field in Northern Territory.
Excellent. If you're just joining us, the Anzac Day March in Melbourne today has had a stunning turnout. Some 50,000 people turned up to the dawn service this morning, which was far beyond expectations. And the march has done the same. It's a big turnout. They were thinking 10, maybe 15,000 people. It's not official yet, but I'm here to tell you that it has been a magnificent turnout and far beyond anything we could have expected.
Extraordinary, Paul. 50,000 people at the dawn service this morning. You wouldn't credit it, would you?
Yeah, back to 2015's numbers. That was a big year, a big turnout. So last year was restricted, heavily restricted, in the year before no march, but certainly it's a clear indication that people want to take part in this annual event. Aided by some nice weather, but in fact I don't think that plays all that much of a part in the preparations, because people are committed to being here.
Exactly.
And there's the flyover that Chris has been waiting for.
At last, Paul, they're airborne.
So I think they're time, Paul, to indicate that the Air Force contingent is just about to step off from the CBD. It's a nice formation there.
Yeah, it looks
beautiful background, of course. Nice clear sky.
As I'm saying, if the picture paints 1,000 words.
Yeah.
Makes you want to get up there again, doesn't it, Chris?
Sure does.
I can see you start twitching all the time when we see that flyover.
We had to wait some time, but it's good to see the Air Force, Royal Australian Air Force, appearing now, Chris.
Yes.
You've been very patient.
I should mention, perhaps, just while the Air Force is on this way, last year, the 31st of March 2021, marked 100 years of service by the Air Force to Australia.
That's great, isn't it?
Where have they come from, Chris?
They come from Sale.
Yeah, they're
and the Air Force Base is Sale, and they'll do a bit of a round robin around Victoria. Various commemoration services here today, and I guess this is just one of the many.
A tour of the state. I was in Sale on the weekend and I saw traffic banked for kilometres going to the air show there.
Oh, really?
It was the Anzac Day.
Okay.
Oh, the Anzac Weekend Air Show in Sale.
Okay.
A big event down there in Gippsland. So they'll go all over the state doing those. The
certainly all around the Melbourne area anyway.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a 13th Armoured Regiment coming up there, and loyalty unto death is the motto. Tell me, Chris, is the Point Cook RAF Museum still open to public?
Oh, absolutely. Certainly. I think it is probably just the COVID restrictions coming off. It's probably about to open again.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Yep.
A great museum.
It is. Very good.
Yeah, they do that well there at the museum. I'm sure it's been frustrating that people couldn't come through as they normally would in the past couple of years, as we could say with all parts of life. But no, it's a nice reminder.
There's been a lot of things to catch up on, Paul.
If that's something you want to do, and you love those old planes, it is a great thing to do. Take the kids and go and have a look.
Another good one is the National Vietnam Veterans Museum down at Phillip Island.
That is good, isn't it? Yes.
Have you been there, Paul?
Yes, I have. Yep.
Quite a number of aircraft. I believe there's something like 30,000 odd pieces of memorabilia from the Vietnam War there. And they've got a great little cafe called the Cafe Nui Dat.
Yes, that's right.
And the food's okay.
It's a nice spot there as well.
It certainly is. And the RSL down at Cowes has been totally remodelled and looks absolutely marvellous.
Is it near the waterfront?
Very close to the waterfront. Just back a little bit, Paul, from there. Look at the 118th Australian General Transport Company coming through.
Oh, there's my favourite band coming up. It's the Air Force Ceremonial Band. And the musical director is Flight Lieutenant Aaron Michael, who joined the Air Force in 1999 as a saxophonist for 4 years, and then rejoined in 2017 with a posting to Melbourne. He's now the director of music. And the drum major is Flight Sergeant Adam Schnitz, who enlisted in the RAAF in 1998. As the drum major, he's responsible for shaping Air Force Band ceremonial support for the Air Force. And there's the Air Force contingent, uniform contingent coming through.
Very impressive, Chris.
Thank you. We're led by Wing Commander Caroline Godfrey, who's the commanding officer of number 21 Squadron. Caroline joined the Air Force as an education assistant and was commissioned as an admin officer in 2006. She took up the position as commanding officer 21 Squadron in December 2020. The tune they're playing, I think, is called Aces High. Probably recognise it from a film.
The contingent here from the RAF, Chris, are they from Sale or?
No, they're mainly from around the Melbourne area, RAF Williams and Defence Plaza. Also, I think from HMS Cerberus, some of the second flight.
Yeah.
There's my banner being Air Force veteran. This is the first year, in fact, that we've had Scouts carry our banner for us. Numbers are sort of slowly reducing.
How does it feel for you to see that banner?
Oh, it's great. Yes, it's been sitting in my shed for the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Has it?
Prior to being delivered here for the march.
Yeah.
Here comes the famous Sunderland Squadron. Numbers 10 and 461 Squadron on the banner.
Number 3 RAF Fighters Squadron. They saw a lot of action there.
A lot of action in the Middle East, yes. One of the oldest squadrons, in fact, in the Air Force. The RAAF in Europe. There's another banner coming through very shortly.
I think that's the key to it there, the Melbourne Youth Orchestra, Paul.
Yes, playing a tune that we can all recognise.
Certainly can.
Banner coming through now with the RAAF in the Middle East just shows you the various parts of Europe and the Middle East that the RAAF was represented.
And the banner's done slightly differently there with all the squadrons listed with their numbers.
Yeah. So a big commitment to Europe at the beginning of the war, and of course when Japan posed a threat to Australia, they had to sort of rethink the whole strategy and bring a lot of the servicemen back to defend Australia.
Yeah, priority. Quite amazing, Chris, you might know more about it, but I believe during World War II here in Melbourne, Port Melbourne, were building Wirraway fighter aircraft.
Certainly, yes. Government aircraft factories and amazing output for those times.
The 458 Squadron.
Yes, that was formed in Australia under the Empire Air Training Scheme, which produced a lot of aircrew for service in Europe. And they flew various versions of the Vickers Wellington bombers and operated under Bomber Command, of course, in the UK, and also Coastal Command. 460 Squadron was the largest and longest serving of the Australian squadrons in Bomber Command. They suffered terrible losses with more than 1,000 crew killed during their service. 460 Squadron was also equipped with the very famous Lancaster aircraft.
Wellingtons and Lancasters on there, and following the 460, it's the Oddbods UK Association, Chris.
Yes, that's correct. It's an association of Australian aviators who served in non-Australian squadrons, RAF squadrons during the war, and became known as the Oddbods. Catalinas, very famous aircraft, operated throughout the entire war in the Pacific, conducting bombing, reconnaissance, air-sea rescue missions, and a very successful mine-laying operation. Australia purchased a total of 168 Catalinas, forming 4 squadrons, 11, 20, 42 and 43, and 5 air-sea rescue flights.
Yeah, remarkable planes, aren't they?
They certainly are. The Air Force Association banner coming through.
We saw the Pathfinder Force banner as well.
Yes, they're a very important part of the bombing campaign against Germany in World War II. And the Beaufort squadrons.
Some family members represented there, and veterans being driven up to the Shrine of Remembrance. Just off to one side, and up they go, up the steps.
And the Beaufort squadrons we saw just a little while ago, Paul, their leader was Tony Clark, leading the banner. And more than 30 squadrons and units were equipped with Bristol Beauforts. Very popular airplane.
24 Squadron there, Chris, and yes, the Liberators there.
Liberators, yes, they saw action in Rabaul and New Guinea, operating the Wirral and multi-vengeance aircraft before becoming re-equipped with a B-24 in 1944. Operated from the Northern Territory, conducting bombing and anti-shipping missions over the then Netherlands East Indies, which is now, of course, Indonesia, till the end of the war.
Great to see the veterans being helped along by family. And
yes, certainly is. Yep.
All the way, there's a nice seat up there beside the Shrine of Remembrance, waiting for them if they need it. Sun bathing the crowd there, just up the top of the rise. Building, it's almost a crowd.
31 Squadron, I think, flying Beaufighters. This squadron was formed at Wagga in 1942, operating the aircraft out of the Northern Territory.
Let's hear from Annie now, who's catching up with a representative of the Girl Guides.
Miriam, what does Anzac Day mean to you?
I'm a cub, so we normally go out and do something for the community.
What's it been like seeing all these people here today and lots of people marching?
Very interesting, because most of them are Australian, so you have something in common with them.
Did you get to march?
Yes, I carried a banner string with my friend.
How did it feel marching with everyone?
It made me feel very important.
And what's your message to those that served in war or are still serving now? What would you like to say to them?
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Well said, and thanks to Annie as well. As we see the Air Force continue to be represented.
So that's 31 Squadron we spoke about just a little while ago, Paul, and mentioned they operated out of the Northern Territory. And coming up very shortly, we'll see some of the important units of World War II, the repair and salvage units, or the mobile works units, and the Air Force construction squadrons, which played a very important part in providing serviceable, repairing and providing serviceable aircraft for use.
You're listening to the expert commentator representing Air Force, Chris Hudner, who I can tell you sets aside his marching to bring you all of this information and to help our broadcast. But Chris, you've got mates who get down there and march, and you catch up with them later, and it's a very special day for you.
Very special day, Paul. Yes, yeah.
You can see some of the Air Force cadets there. They're wearing a slouch hat. So not only worn by the Army, also worn by the Australian Army, Air Force. And the slouch hat goes back to 1885. It was first worn overseas in the First Boer War. So the slouch hat is typically made of rabbit fur felt or wool felt. It's worn today with only the sir turned up during ceremonial parades, like I had on before.
I saw that looked good on you too.
And the slouch refers to the sloping brim. So whilst we all think it is uniquely Australian, of course there's similar styles worn by other countries, such as Canada, New Zealand, India and Germany.
I just caught a glimpse there of the RAF radar units, an important contribution that they made to the Second World War. And they were set up small units all around Australia. I think about 140 radar stations, 6,000 people manning them. And in June of 2020, an interpretive exhibition was opened in the original number 13 radar squadron near the Cape Otway Lighthouse, and it's well worth a visit if you get the chance.
A lot of trust involved in having those operations set up well.
Absolutely.
Gentleman coming through with his family, no doubt, enjoying the applause on the way through. People are always very generous when they line up this concourse. They turn up for that express purpose of giving their thanks and expressing their appreciation for service. Now looking back at the First World War and banners coming through there, Michelle.
Yes.
Once again, we have family members carrying those photographs more and more, perhaps with the older First World War. Oh, the slouch hat and some more feathers too.
So it's good to see the descendants here keeping that spirit alive in terms of these units that served in the First World War. If we go back to the 1911 census, there were 4.5 million people living in Australia. Victoria, we had 1.43 million people living in Victoria. Just giving you those stats to give you context, they've 416,809 Australians enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force. So that's 38.7% of the Australian population, the male population. Between 18 and 44 were enlisted in the AIF. And about 320,000 of those people embarked overseas for service over in Europe. Almost 60,000 were killed in action and died of wounds. So that's 18%. Australia unfortunately had the highest casualty rate of war, almost 65%, proportional to the embarkations. So that's why it's really important that the repatriation services post-war were created.
Yeah.
And it really spurred on a number of patriotic fundraising activities, namely the Red Cross. So the Red Cross then had 462 branches across Victoria. They raised £854,000. And the Australian Comfort Fund raised £189,000. Even the state schools, the children of the state schools, they raised £422,000.
Wow.
Yeah, so in total, just with patriotic funds, £3.295 million were raised back in that day.
Yep.
Quite extraordinary.
Well, it's a country that had to find a way to sort of move forward after the great tragedies.
Interesting one about the VFL. I know it's close to your heart, PK. But in World War I, there were only 4 teams competing in the VFL, the Victorian Football League, in 1916. That was Carlton, Richmond, Fitzroy and Collingwood.
There you go. Yeah.
But because there were only 4 teams competing, this led to an anomaly where Fitzroy were the only team ever to win both the Wooden Spoon and the Premiership.
Time they run well.
I'm an old Fitzroy supporter, Michelle, so that was nice of you to say that, not the Lions.
There was some football played overseas at that time. I had a historian from Gippsland mentioned to me over the weekend. He's got a letter from one of the players who took part in a game in Egypt. And they were playing a bit of football there, some of the diggers, before they went on to Gallipoli. And there's accounts of that as well. Some more history of the World War I as we saw those banners come through. It's I think it's an important part for the banners to be carried and for descendants, if they like, to take part in the march as well.
It certainly tells the story, Paul, doesn't it?
It does. It's part of storytelling, which of course is a big part of this day.
Got the Dunkirk veterans marching up.
Yes, we'll see the international contingents, if we can call them that, come through. The Dunkirk veterans, the Scottish veterans, Maltese, the Gurkha Brigade, and many, many more as well. Of course, you carry a wreath all the way. That'll be set down at the shrine. Here we are, the Scots. I knew we'd see some kilts.
I think they're taking the high road this morning, I think, Paul.
Thanks, Dennis. Have you ever worn a kilt?
Not myself, no.
I wore one once. It was very nice.
Yeah. Must get cold up in them high hills of Scotland, no?
Not with the long socks. There you go.
They are long socks.
The kids look great.
Of course, being a Campbell, it's near and dear to my heart, the kilt.
No, I thought it might be.
Just don't let any McDonald's near me. That's the Australian Army Band, Melbourne. Leading the Commonwealth Forces.
Every time I see the kilt, I think of that movie with Mel Gibson, Braveheart, Michelle and Paul. It was certainly very colourful, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Good movie, Braveheart.
Great, yeah.
I'm not sure if it's as historically accurate as the information that we're providing here, but it was a good movie. I liked it anyway. There's the Gurkhas Brigade coming through.
Royal Gurkhas Rifles, the British Army.
I believe there's quite a number of Gurkhas and their families living down in Tasmania.
Is that right?
Paul? Yeah,
yep.
Some years back they were granted farmlands down there to produce vegetables and fruit. Yeah.
Yep. Strong connection.
It is, and I believe at Constitution Dock there at Salamanca Place, Saturdays is the market day.
Yeah.
And you'll see them there selling their fruit and vegetables.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another one to recommend. We've given some good travel tips, haven't we, today?
A little bit of a travelogue, isn't it?
Yeah. Catch up with parts of Australia and celebrate some strong history and connections with different communities. There's the India Veterans.
Yes, so Indian veterans, they played a very important role at Gallipoli. In fact, they were the first troops to land alongside Anzacs. It's a long history with them.
Well, very good soldiers, Michelle.
Yes.
There's the South Africa Veterans marching in formation. Be followed there by the Rhodesia Veterans and the Greek Presidential Guard.
I believe they're especially flown out from Greece to Melbourne for today for the Anzac Day.
Yes. What was Greek Easter yesterday?
It was, yes.
There you go.
Army cadets.
Yeah, a big Greek community in Melbourne, as we know. Particularly around the Oakley.
Yeah, there's little Athens out there, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's a beautiful part of Melbourne.
They brought Oakley alive with the shopping centre there. I've heard stories that they say that the biggest population outside of Athens of Greeks is here in Melbourne.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. Well, many years ago, the Greek team did particularly well at the European Championships in football. And, it was a big focus, a big party. So yes, yeah. If you like your Greek culture, make sure that you swing past Oakley at some stage. The United States veterans we just saw there very briefly.
The Vietnam veterans, the leader is Dinh Nguyen. He's been president of the association for 6 years. There's about 140 members in their association. It's been going on since the 1980s. Most of their members have arrived in Australia as political refugees.
Yeah.
The HMAS Sydney Association have a luncheon once a year down at the Navy Club at Baxter, and the invited guests are the South Vietnamese former service personnel and their families. It's a great day. And we have a little service, and they're wearing the uniforms for the service and throughout the day at Baxter. It's a good Navy Club.
No, that sounds like a great event.
It is.
And there's the Caulfield South Primary School Drum Corps. They're here every year in their uniform. And I think, is this their third term they've been around? They just keep going and going. They're absolutely extraordinary.
They do well. They get up a lot of steps today.
Definitely a get fit day, isn't it?
The strong connections between, as we see all these international contingents come through and represented in the march, it's worth reflecting on the connections that countries do make, even some that fight against each other and later have that strong connection, I guess, like Australia and Turkey. But certainly the South Vietnamese, it sounds like a great event down there, Dennis.
It is. It's been having it each year, Paul, and we'll invite you down as our special guest.
Yeah, I come along for that.
Yeah.
Republic of Vietnam represented, the French as well. The Netherlands veterans are there. Russians, the Turkish yet to come.
The Italians, they've been through?
The Italians will come after. Turkish, of course, yeah. Well, no Russian this year.
What a great contribution the Italian community has made into Australia, particularly in Melbourne.
Absolutely.
standing to attention.
Very disciplined, aren't they?
Very.
Now we saw, Dennis, you're telling us about the HMAS Hobart's contingent being in Melbourne at the moment. They marched proudly earlier. We can hear more about that. Let's go to Annie Kearney.
Great.
I'm here with Commander Andrew Pepper, who is the captain of HMAS Hobart. Commander, HMAS Hobart's usually docked in Sydney. What brings you to Melbourne?
Yeah, look, that's correct. We're a fleet-based Eastern unit. We're down here doing exercises in the southern seas, but for today we're very fortunate to march here in Melbourne. I bring 220 crew with me, 24 locals, so we're very excited.
It's a bit of local experience because this is your first time to the Shrine of Remembrance for a dawn service in Melbourne.
This is the first time we brought Hobart to Melbourne officially for a visit, and it's very exciting for us. But as I said, we've got 24 people who were really excited to step ashore yesterday, and 200 crew who have just had the experience of paying our respects.
And what does Anzac Day personally mean to you?
Look, Anzac Day is a time for us to march and remember those who can't march now, for the sacrifice they give to our community, and really for our sailors to think about those who came before us. They've set a tradition that we hope to follow.
Thank you so much for your time, Commander. Enjoy the rest of your first Melbourne March.
No worries, fantastic. Thanks for being here.
Thanks to Annie. Yeah. We didn't need to worry about them getting out and about in Melbourne. They're doing the right thing, will they, what they hear?
They certainly
well
will.
behaved these days?
I hope so, Paul. I can't make much comment.
No, it's that
I'm sure they will.
Stay. Yeah, they look very professional earlier, and yeah, great to see them here.
And the commander spoke very well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. I hope they have some fun and in between their heavy workload. Moving through here and continuing with the international banners, the Allied Veterans, Chinese represented, and receiving some applause there as well, and giving a few waves.
I see their descendants are there too, Paul.
Yes, that's
Polish
right.
Ex-Servicemen's Association.
If you've been down to your local RSL and you're just getting back, you're watching the ABC's coverage of the Anzac Day March in Melbourne as it winds towards its conclusion. It's been a beautiful morning here, a massive turnout, both from people here to watch and those taking part. Significant contributions, particularly from Army and Navy. You just heard from the commander of the HMAS Hobart. Some really big groups coming through here and enjoying the day, and really enjoying the fact that it's unrestricted now. Those restrictions easing and allowing people to take part. Some have travelled a long way to be in Melbourne today for this ceremony. Of course, there'll be more ceremonies all around Australia and overseas, and the ABC is covering all of that. But if you've just tuned in and you didn't want to miss the start of the march, it will be on iView, and so that you can tell your families and friends as well that they can watch the full march. Wonderfully organised event. It's been done with precision and with a big heart as well. Led by 3 veterans of Vietnam on the 60-year anniversary of the start of Australia's campaign or involvement in Vietnam as it was then.
You can see on screen the Kui Rup Secondary College marching band. The band continues its long association with the 39th Battalion. It's been leading the march since 1999, and many of the students, teachers and alumni form part of the band. And you can see they're of all ages. Been a bit of a backing picking up on the march there in terms of cadence. We all saw before the Greek Presidential Guard. They're elite Greek soldiers who train to perform various ceremonial duties. But their marching cadence is a third slower than ours. So that's
right?
Yes.
I think it was a great effort for the Greek government to send them over for Anzac Day, Michelle, for Chris.
Well, they stand guard at the tomb of the unknown soldier and the presidential palace, and also raise and lower the flag at the Acropolis every Sunday.
Serbian veterans marching through now.
Descendants of the Boer War, the South African War, and we've made given a little bit of a history lesson about that. 20 odd years before World War I.
120 years ago.
I know. Yeah. Well, the 2nd Victorian Mounted Rifles was led by Colonel Tom Price in the Second Boer War. And then the 5th Victorian Mounted Rifles were the 5th contingent to the Second Boer War in 1909. They mobilised at Pretoria and served between the 24th of March and the 4th of April 1901. It saw considerable action and we're used to the combat of the guerrilla warfare tactics of the Boer War. Of note, Leslie Cecil Magar was awarded a Victoria Cross for gallant acts during the Second Boer War. And the regiment came into controversy after an attack on their camp. The 5th saw heavy casualties with the regimental surgeon and 18 NCOs and men killed. But of note is Leslie Cecil Magar. Most people would know there's a Magar barracks in Broadmeadows, and that is his namesake. The Magar Barracks in Broadmeadows was also the mobilisation site prior to the First World War.
You'd almost say that, Michelle, the Boer War for Australia was the entry into further international conflicts, wasn't it?
Indeed.
Chris should be happy now. There's a good contingent of...
Yes, they're training cadets, yes. Air Force cadets, I should say. Used to be called the Air Training Corps.
It was. Yeah.
And this is the massed Australian national flag contingent. Here we have the Melbourne College Band and alumni again. They've been, is this their 2nd time round or the 3rd?
Been through a couple of times, I think. Formerly the Croydon Secondary College.
That looks very impressive with the mass flags of Australia, doesn't it?
Yeah, looks pretty good.
I recall 1987, the welcome home in Sydney for the Vietnam veterans. There were 502 flags being carried that day, representing Australia's loss of servicemen killed.
And the march wouldn't be complete without the support of the cadets, the scouts, the cubs, and all the volunteers that help the parade and the march run so smoothly. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and certainly the CBD grid is closed to all civilian traffic, so everybody can form up appropriately, and all these volunteers help in the smooth running of the march today. There's a cub there.
Fantastic effort by all concerned, Michelle, isn't it? The logistics involved to get this Anzac Day as we see it.
There's some more volunteers, scout leaders.
yeah, some recognition of the people that have put on the day and helped put on the day. They're all volunteers, and the RSL organisers, all of the various groups. It's you know, very fitting that they get to have their place in the sun. Get a round of applause for their efforts, and you know, we start with the Premier of the state and the dignitaries, the Governor, and we finish at the end of the march with those who are really hands-on with carrying those banners and doing what they can to assist veterans. And no doubt, as we've discussed earlier, it piques interest in young people when they take part in the march.
Educational wise, Paul.
And you can't help but be here and
not be affected.
Have a look at, you know, the people that are marching, the old photographs, the stories, just the conversations that you can have by being around this place and what it means. And we've heard from Annie Kearney talking to serving veterans and serving officials, and just hearing what it means to them. And just those conversations, I think, alone are a reason to come to the march and spend time. And it's looking after the future as well, isn't it? By paying attention to the past.
Safeguarding our heritage, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. Well, yeah, what a place to do it, in a place that's a shrine which is set up for that.
It is remarkable what you were just saying, Paul, the amount of young people involved and given their time for Anzac Day and contributing. It's tremendous.
What a great view of the shrine that is.
It is.
You can see all the cadets and scouts moving up into the forecourt. Special mention to our marshals for the day, led by Colonel Jason Cook and the team of marshals that are behind the scenes to make this event happen. A lot of work, a lot of stress, no doubt, on the day, but absolutely well done, and thank you. And also to thank you to Victoria Police, our partners here. Security is, you know, everybody's concern, and they're doing a stellar job.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Our camera's doing a great job of giving you a picture of what happens now. And Chris, I know that you and your mates will go and spend time together, but everyone will have their plans now, won't they, for the rest of the day after the march? And I guess this is probably almost a starting point for the rest of Anzac Day. Let's hear now. We're going to have Annie Kearney. She's going to have a bit of a chat with Michelle about Anzac Day and what it means.
Well, I'm here with someone you may recognise, part of our commentary team, Brigadier Michelle Campbell. Brigadier, thank you for joining me here. Just want to find a little bit more about your service. What's your link to Anzac Day?
Well, I've been in the Army Reserve for 33 years, and so I ran away and joined the service when I was 18. So I've been commentating the march this morning, and it is great to see so many people out. We had a record turnout this morning, 50,000 people, and I think that just is reflective of the last 2 years, where 2020 we were standing in our driveways, and last year we had a very condensed COVID restricted march, so fantastic to see everybody out today.
You have an absolute great view from where you've been commentating. What's been the best part of the march that you've seen so far?
Just seeing everybody connect again, and you know, all the bands that are helping, and the banners, the scouts and cadets all helping out, and seeing all the veterans here as well, just reconnecting, you know, reminiscing and just paying their respects.
Can you tell us a little bit about your service? So you served in Afghanistan, you've also worked in bushfires. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was in Afghanistan in 2014 and I worked for NATO there. But I've also served the community in bushfires, so 2003, 2009 and just recently in 1920. Yeah.
Incredibly busy life you have lived. So thankful to have you on our commentary team today. What's your highlight when you go home after today, after the dawn service and after the march? What's the part that sits with you?
Well, after this, I normally go to the footy. And so you wear your medals with your suit, going to the footy. And so coming home from the footy is such a special moment on public transport, because so many people come up to you and thank you for your service. And by the time you get home, you're quite emotional, and you just sort of I don't know, sit back on the couch and just think, wow, you know, I've done my bit for the nation.
It's funny you say that. I too am also heading to the footy, and it is one of my favourite parts is seeing people in their medals and thanking them when you're out at the ground.
Yeah, no, goosebumps. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Brigadier. Really appreciate having you part of our team.
Thanks, Annie.
Annie, speaking to Brigadier Michelle Campbell, good to put a face to the voice, and we're really enjoying her expert comments, not just this year as well. And Dennis and Chris, that's a marvellous sight, isn't it? There,
fantastic, isn't it?
All of those bagpipes going at once.
I don't think I've seen that before, Paul.
No, it looks great. We've seen some great gatherings this morning, and the marching has been second to none, and the music as well.
Well, looking at the window from the OB, you can see as well as our monitors, but you can see them in real time out there, and it looks absolutely wonderful, the tartans.
The sun is up, the full day ahead, and it's been a terrific march here in Melbourne. Yes, there's some football, but the main game is the Anzac Day commemorations, and they'll keep taking place as the official proceedings follow here. And you will see on your ABC too coverage of other services from all around the world as well. Let's now take a step away. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the first bombing of Darwin in 1942. 101-year-old veteran Brian Winspear shares his memories of this event and still thinks it's a nice place to go for a holiday.
It was a tense day in Darwin in 1942 when Brian Winspear noticed a strange object glistening above the palm trees.
You could see the sun glinting off the bombs. It was just like confetti coming down.
Mr Winspear, now 101 years old, was serving in the Royal Australian Air Force when Japan started dropping bombs on Darwin.
We had some very close near misses, and it blew my hat off, and I got shrapnel in my hand and in my eye. And fires were burning everywhere, and as I say, we lost about 8 or 10 of our aircraft. They were just all burning.
To this day, Japan's first air raid in Darwin on February 19, 1942 remains the largest single attack ever mounted by a foreign power on Australia. Dr Norman Cramp says it marked the beginning of a months-long onslaught.
Around 230 to 250 people were killed on that first day, and over the nearly 2 years of bombings, around 1,700 people lost their lives.
Mr Winspear says the attacks were so damaging and fast, there was no time to properly farewell the dead.
If someone didn't come back, there was no mourning, no funerals, no anything. At one stage I had to watch 12 aircrew blokes burn to death after their plane took off tail heavy.
After narrowly escaping death a dozen times, Mr Winspear says the bombing of Darwin changed him forever.
It made me a great believer in fate. You know, if something was going to happen, you never kicked against it. You just took it as it came, and several times I was supposed to be doing something in the last minute. They changed it, and the person that took my place in 2 or 3 cases, he was dead with a lot of others.
If there's one thing Mr Winspear and Dr Cramp want to leave with Australians, it's the heartache caused by the Darwin bombing.
The younger generations and the current generations and the generations in the future are losing their memory of this. And the danger with history is if you forget it and you ignore it, you increase the chances of it repeating itself.
Now, 80 years after witnessing death and destruction, Mr Winspear's image of Darwin has changed for the better.
I think it's a nice place to go for a holiday.
Well, I'm here with another special guest, one of our commentators, Dennis Gist. Dennis, thank you so much for being part of the ABC team today. What's it been like seeing the march?
Good morning, Annie. It's great to be part of the ABC program and doing the commentary, and to be here today, this morning, to participate and to comment on the veterans and the history of Australia in its wars that we've been in all these different times, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, there's so many. But to see the turnout today, Annie, particularly this morning, 50,000 people attending the dawn service, it's just incredible, so reminiscent of the old days.
It must make you feel very heart-warmed, very emotional. Tell us a little bit about your service, your personal service.
Yeah, the Royal Australian Navy, and I started off as a naval sea cadet back when I was 12 to 17, and then sat for the Royal Australian Navy, accepted, went in the Navy, and in 1963 and 64, in 64 I was on the HMAS Melbourne. We were engaged in the Malaya-Borneo conflict, FESA, for a short period of time, aiding the fight against communism there. And then 65, in the war theatres, was May 27, we sailed from Sydney on the HMAS Sydney, the troop carrier, later known as the Vung Tau ferry, operational deployments into Vung Tau, South Vietnam, carrying troops and supplies and weapons and ammunition into the war front in a very active area of Vung Tau.
What an incredible service that you've given to our country. Thank you so much for that, not only that, but also for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Annie. Thank you, Channel 2, and it's a very special Anzac Day to be here. Thanks.
Thanks, Annie. Yeah, Annie's done a terrific job out getting all of those wonderful interviews, including our terrific expert commentators. And Michelle, we're seeing some wreaths about to be laid.
This is the conclusion of the march where the official wreath laying occurs. We've got the president of the RSL on the right there, Dr. Robert Webster. And they'll lay wreaths there at the base of the stairs up to the shrine. And so after the march, the public are able to go and read all the commemorative notes there.
Just while they're doing that, let's go back down to Annie, who'll talk to our final commentator, representing Air Force, Chris Hudner.
Well, you may recognise the man standing next to me, Chris Hudd, not part of our commentary team today. Chris, what's it been like seeing the march and all these people here after the past couple of years?
It's been a tremendous day today with so many people turning up, so many bands operating, so many people marching, making the most of the end of the COVID lockdown. I think it's been just a tremendous day, it really has.
For you, what's been the best part of the march?
Well, I'd have to say probably a bit biased, but watching the Air Force contingent coming through, and particularly our group of Vietnam veterans who've made the most of today. And we're about to have a small commemoration service, and then we'll have lunch in town together afterwards. So
you are very biased.
We are.
Tell us a little bit about your service in Vietnam.
So my service was what was known as a forward air controller, where we would liaise between the Air Force, United States Air Force fighter aircraft and the Army operating on the ground, and coordinate the attacks on the enemy positions. So that was my particular job. I was there for about 8 months between 1970 and 71. So it's going back a few years now, about 50 years ago.
And lots of Vietnam veterans here today, lots of other wars too. What's it like catching up with them and being able to see them?
Oh, it's good. It really is good to see the guys still marching, and of course a lot of the older folk are now represented by their friends and their descendants and their families. So it's good to see the traditions being maintained over all these years. It really is good.
It has been an absolute magnificent sight. You've had the best of you. Thank you so much for your time, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you, Annie. Yes, we're just looking at the conclusion of the march now, and some more dignitaries laying their wreaths. There's representatives from the City of Melbourne and also the Victoria Police. And all of those key bodies, I guess, in Melbourne get the opportunity to take part in this. Some politicians as well, and yeah, our emergency services well represented. I'll tell you one of my highlights of the march, coverage on your ABC has been seeing my expert commentators unveiled and on camera, and they're having those great chats with Annie, and it's been fantastic to hear you talking more about your service and connection with this great day. So thank you all for being here and having that chat.
It's a great opportunity. We thank the ABC, Paul, and your good self.
And we saw Chris's colourful scarf that I referenced earlier.
Yes,
we're getting our veteran scarf. I'm glad we got that one on as well, Chris.
Well done.
As an Afghan vet, we've got our own Afghan scarves as well, so I'll be wearing mine to the footy after this.
Not with the uniform.
Not with the uniform, no. Not regulation, I'm afraid.
There's a lot of people staying behind here. I would say thousands stayed behind after the march to watch this official part of the ceremony as well.
It's wonderful to view, isn't it? It's so reminiscent of past years. We used to commemorate and celebrate Anzac Day. To see this fantastic turnout of the Victorians here today, and I'm sure equally around Victoria at the RSLs and other monuments that they've had a record turnout. And
well, we're guessing and reading the mood, aren't we, Dennis? But this feels like a day from sort of 10 or 15 years ago.
It does. It feels like we've gone back in time almost. Yeah.
We're almost back to the 2015, which I think we had the record attendance for the centenary of Gallipoli, and it's feeling like that. And I think everybody's excited after 2 years of lockdown.
We've been released on good behaviour, Michelle.
And we have the Premier of Victoria.
As the Premier, we saw Robert Webster earlier laying a wreath there, the President of the RSL. Let's go down to Annie now, who has that special guest.
I'm here with RSL President Robert Webster. Robert, how's today gone?
Look, it's been terrific this morning. The turn up for the dawn service was absolutely brilliant. The march has been terrific. We're running slightly ahead on the march, which is good news, which is unusual too, by the way, but don't tell anybody. But I think the numbers will come up on the march as being pretty decent numbers. The dawn service, the Shrine have put out a press release talking 50,000. It's certainly the biggest since I've been state president in 2017. So a really good turnout. And the reports I'm getting from around the bush that the turn-up's been pretty good there too.
It must be a relief after the past couple of years.
Yes, it's been absolutely brilliant to see them all the vets out here today.
And just nice to hear the applause and all the people around.
Yeah, it is. It's been really good. Really, really good.
Does planning begin for 2023 already?
Probably about 1:30 today.
Well, thank you so much, Robert.
A couple of things we've learned, so yeah. But thank you.
No, thank you. It's been an absolutely magnificent day.
Yeah, it's been a great day, and we ordered the weather special.
Thank you. Yes, as a bonus. Michelle, you go to those meetings and attend all of that, so it's a big organisation, isn't it? So it's not as easy as it looks on camera.
It's not, and like we said earlier, the CBD was locked down for through traffic from I think it was 6 o'clock last night, so everybody could form up in an orderly manner. All the banners, the colours, the Gideons, the standards issued to the correct people in the correct order. So, it was a military operation.
That's the military operation part, and also, it's down to the finer details. We heard Chris say earlier his banner was in his garage.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone.
So it's the little things, isn't it? It's the volunteers making sure that they get all those little special pieces of colour.
Particularly all the marshals too, Paul.
Yes.
That have given their time to be there, and the RSL, of course. And I would like to mention Bruce Jarvis, Stretch Jarvis, who plays a fantastic role in coordinating it with one of my mates, David Dwyer of HMS Sydney Association, and it's been displayed today what a great success can be done for our Anzac Day.
I'm getting messages on my phone as we're as we're broadcasting here from people I know attended local services, saying that they've been big too, and very well attended local services in different suburbs.
It's wonderful to hear that, isn't it? Yeah, great.
And that's what we were hearing around the traps, because a few months ago the COVID restrictions were unknown, what they were going to be for Anzac Day. So a number of the RSL sub-branches and local councils and whatnot had booked keynote speakers, catering, all that sort of thing for their local services. So we expect that the local services were well attended as well. So good turnout from Victorians.
Yes, and well, we're talking earlier about the travel too, and we've given you a few tips of places to visit, including the Vietnam Veterans Museum down there at Phillip Island, and I guess that's another bonus of us being freed up.
Cafe Nui Dat would welcome all visitors.
Cafe Nui Dat.
Pretty good scram.
Yep, it's a good plug, Dennis, and no doubt you've got yourself a free coffee there too.
I hope so, Paul.
for spreading the news.
Yeah.
But no, to travel and get around, and well, as David Hurley said earlier, pay attention to those memorials, some of which have been erected more than 100 years ago. Pay attention to the names and the stories, and learn about history, and Anzac Day becomes even richer when you understand why people are here and their family connections, and even your own family.
I think folks have really demonstrated that all through Australia today, Paul, from the feedback we're getting. It's just tremendous, isn't it? Good, very rewarding.
It is, and we wish everyone well as they go and take part in their special lunches today too. Make sure you look after yourself, Chris.
Actually, it's been a busy week, Paul. We had the Premier's lunch during the week, and the Anzac Day commemoration service at St Paul's Cathedral yesterday, and footy last night, and the footy again today. So it's been a busy week.
Yeah, it's a busy weekend. I don't mind Anzac Day on a Monday, actually. It's, and as I mentioned earlier, the kids go back to school from tomorrow.
A lot of
There's a few happy parents out there.
I tell you, the kids at Cooey Rupp and Glen, Waverley, and they'll be a bit tired tomorrow. They've done a few miles today, and brought to us some beautiful music.
Well, the bands were just outstanding, weren't they, Paul? Just tremendous.
They were terrific. It's been a magnificent occasion. Let's have a look at some highlights from today.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.